We are live, baby. Apologies to all of the people in the chat. We were very, very late today. That was partly some technical difficulties there at the end for me. I'm sweating bullets, guys.
You did a fantastic job.
Need to just get back into the swing of this, just resettle myself, do a little bit of yoga. Yeah, Goose Fraba style. And yeah, how are you boys? How was your week? And what did you think, or what were your takeaways from the trade period overall?
It was a week from hell, actually, Dylan. I was horribly unwell for half of it. And then...
oh, that's right.
Yeah, then we had the trade period. Since then, it's been busy. Obviously, we were here Wednesday night covering the deadline day. And then since then, it's been editing and making other videos. But yeah, I haven't really had a chance to let the dust settle mentally. How are you, Druzy?
I'm good, man. Living the dream. Trade period's done. We're going to wrap it up. And then all we've got is the draft after that. So... I feel like for me, footy season has now actually ended. Now the trade period's done. We started this live stream up in March-ish, around that time.
Yeah, it would have been.
And it feels like the finish line is here. So we got some more trades and draft to talk about, but feel good to wrap up this season. Just
absolutely.
For Eagles and North fans, it's really just getting started with the draft around the corner. Mind you, you don't have a first rounder, so maybe it's just me.
Yeah, we've got not a lot going on. We had a pretty quiet trade period overall, mainly just outgoings, and then... yeah, the draft, not much happening for us there unless we are able to trade up in the coming weeks. But
did you hear Dylan? Sorry to interrupt.
No,
North made a late charge for Charlie Curnow.
I did hear this. I mean, what an absurd, just
you might as well
phenomenon. Oh yeah, okay, we may as well. But like, we're not going to get a player like that anyway, are we? So it's sort of insignificant. Like as if he was going to go from Carlton to another Melbourne team and go to North Melbourne. Just very, very unlikely. I don't know what we would have been able to offer up. In the way
was it 2 first rounders you offered, something like that?
I think it was 2 future firsts.
2 future firsts.
And whatever you got for Jai Simpkin. I think the way I read it was if you could get Curnow's, Simpkin's exit would be more easy.
Yes.
That makes
but
sense.
The capital that we wanted back for Simpkin was too high anyway and unrealistic.
Yeah.
As was the pitch for Curnow. So
what did you make of Jai Simpkin's statement? Did you see that?
I did. Yeah. I mean, fair play, I suppose. He said that it wasn't really... he kind of threw it out there that it wasn't about the positional switch and it was more about just more of a mental health thing and wanting to get a new environment. But probably, I mean, when you actually think about it from a player like that's perspective, it's probably just being in a losing side year after year.
Yeah.
You do cop criticism.
Especially as a captain. As
a captain, yeah, it's difficult. And he probably for me watching him over the years, like he's a bit of he probably lacks a little bit in the leadership space. As it is, he's not the perfect guy, I think, to step into that role. Not that we've had many other suitors that it could have been. So he's had to probably take on more than he's needed to, given his character. So, yeah, no, fair enough. Fair play. I think North were never really that interested in trading him unless they got a serious offer back, which I don't think it was likely anyway.
Truly.
Who is likely to be the captain or captains at North next year? Because it was implied that Jai would step down.
Griffin Logue.
I think that's pretty much locked in. It will not be Griffin Logue. I'd imagine it's one of two for me. It's either going to be they go aggressive and go Sheasel straight into the position, or Nick Larkey.
Okay, I wasn't aware of Nick Larkey being a leadership figure.
Okay,
but that's because I don't follow North Melbourne. I mean,
yeah, no, I think he's probably one of the more. At least he's a more extroverted character and probably someone that thrives in the media and stuff like that, which is part of obviously being a captain. And he tends to be a guy that's sort of looked up to in the space. He's obviously one of our few players that's had like All-Australian and, been close to winning Colemans and stuff like that. So I think he's probably an obvious choice, as is maybe Tristan Sherry as a bit more of that mature player that's a bit more of a long shot.
Yeah, Lou said LDU in the comments.
Yeah, Larkey, Sherry and LDU are some nominations there in the chat.
LDU doesn't scream captaincy for me. He's probably at times been our best player, but I feel like he'd be one of those guys who would just thrive with the freedom of not having responsibility like that.
Yeah, that's true. Do you just have the one captain at the moment? I've actually lost track because you had
we had
Simpkin and McDonald, wasn't it?
Simpkin and McDonald, and then it got taken off McDonald.
Yeah,
because he was borderline not best 22. And now it's we're sort of in this space. I feel like I wouldn't actually mind it being Sheasel. I feel like he is mature enough. I know that's gone bad for certain other teams, like there was the Jack Trengove.
I was going to say Carlton with Mark Murphy.
Carlton with Mark Murphy.
Put it on him and it ruined him.
That's right. Good recall.
Yeah.
Got that off the Dylan Friends podcast.
Right.
Do you feel like Sheasel would be the sort of character that could absorb that though?
I do.
Yeah.
No, it's too hard to say. Like, You're going to give a 20-year-old the keys to a club and say, take us to the promised land, young man.
He's so impressive, though, isn't he?
Yeah, like watching him speak, it feels like he's kind of almost already living in that space, but not really. I'm sure there's a lot of more responsibilities that come with being captain. However, you could go a co-captaincy route. I know that's not for everyone, but the benefit would be getting someone from the older generation and the younger generation to share that responsibility.
Do you feel like that sort of a setup works for certain clubs and not others?
Possibly. It probably depends on the individual team dynamic. So whether or not it's a club by club thing or a playing group by playing group thing. I think West Coast in the 90s did this with like Kemp and Cousins, if I'm remembering that correctly. Cousins was like the 21-year-old captain. I mean, wasn't Wayne Carey captain at 21?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was the youngest ever captain.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I might be wrong on that. I might be remembering that wrong, but
not sure.
Yeah, he was just like such a star that you kind of had to give it to him just for that on-field leadership more than anything.
Jack Trengove is the youngest player to have captained an AFL team at the age of 20 years old.
Right. Well, he was the one that I thought about when I thought about players who were kind of destroyed by the captaincy.
Yeah. 20 years young.
Did he co-captain it with Scully?
Was it Grimes?
Jack Grimes, that's right.
Yeah.
And they were both, that was a strange one because I feel like the benefits of having dual captaincy is you go one from the younger and one from the older, like you said, Jesse, to kind of connect the two age groups a little bit.
Definitely.
Particularly if you have a list that's built like that. But the Melbourne one was strange because it was just two young guys.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Noah Anderson, young captain, Connor Rosie at the moment as well.
I suppose at North you don't really have a true older generation there. There are a lot of guys like in the mid-20s and then obviously you get Parker and Darling and that. I don't know if you would bring on for a captaincy role for 1 or 2 years. I suppose you could. You could go Parker and Sheasel.
But do you think that you'd have to, that would be communicating to guys like Larky and Sherry, LDU, Sheasel, those guys that you're not ready, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you're not good enough to do that.
There's got to be an assessment, and from the outside, I have no idea whether these guys are suitable. But if they are, then I agree. Then you would go for the guy who's still going to be there in 2 years.
For sure. What did you guys make of the trade period overall? I feel like there was a pretty big media saturation this year, of course, which it sort of got to me. It was a little bit nauseating at times, but probably overall, I enjoyed it. Maybe. Did I enjoy it?
I like the news that comes out that's genuine throughout the year. But when it becomes Nick Dacos is leaving Collingwood, that's when it's like, all right, I'm ready to rein it in. But like we spoke about trade rumours throughout the year. There was rumours about, Lee Kalia, Henry Hustwaite throughout the year, and like neither of those played out in the end. But I enjoyed it to a degree. But yeah, very oversaturating, and I'm glad that it's over.
Yeah, I think the part I can do without is the update on all the posturing between clubs. I do like the gossip. I think that's human nature. I do like hearing things.
Genuine gossip.
The Dacos example
Such
is...
a prima donna, Jesse.
I know. Yeah, I love my reality TV. I'm real too hot to handle, man. Not to mention the show. Anyway, I kind of thought that, for an example, like the West Coast and Brisbane one, obviously I follow that more closely as an Eagles fan. And even I, after 2 days, was getting impatient with, the Lions are going to wait the Eagles out and West Coast are going to do this and bid on Animal. And I'm just like, I can do without all of that. In the end, that deal got done on like the Tuesday. But even that 24-hour period was too much for me. So, from that point of view, I didn't like it. But then again, the Merritt and the Curnow situations going down to the wire, I thought those were far more engaging. And we did see a little bit of a trend with the clubs taking back a little bit of power in this trade period with several players' trades being blocked.
That's true. I was glad that Freo just got our business done early as a fan.
Yeah,
Scott,
you did actually.
McVee done, Brody, Reedy out. Sweet. Yeah. We'll set.
Held Jackson to his contract even though he's desperate to get home.
That power dynamic that you mentioned there, Jesse, with obviously you're alluding to Zach Merritt.
Yeah, Simpkin's probably another possibility there. Different situation, but the same outcome.
Yeah, Archie.
Yeah.
Of course. Well,
that's true.
Would be another a big one in that space.
Good
do
call.
you see, do you think that's just, is there anything behind the scenes there that's pushing that? Or do you think it's more of a, I don't know, just clubs are sort of getting tired of being dictated to by the players?
Yeah, it could be that. I think it probably has been brewing for a little bit. We've seen the league trend in a direction where players are just generally getting the outcome that they want, regardless of contract. And we saw that play out very differently this year. I suppose the Archie one, whilst relevant, it wasn't necessarily It was more about Brisbane taking a stance against Adelaide's offer and not getting walked over from that point of view.
Yep.
Whereas as far as we're aware, the Archie situation was amicable, like his exit from the Brisbane Lions, if there is indeed an exit. So that's the way I would make out of it. The Merritt one probably stands out as the biggest example where a player really stamped his feet up and down and wanted to get out of there and was upset that he didn't, which is distinctly different from the Simpkin
Do we
situation.
have a precedent in the AFL of that happening before to that degree? Because Merritt was like adamant that he wanted to get out. His manager speaking on the final day, like it's pretty toxic right now.
Yeah, look, to that extent and that scale of story, I don't think so. But there has been players who have requested trades under contract and been held to it. Josh Dunkley requested a trade to Essendon in like 2020. The Bulldogs didn't trade him. He ended up going to the Brisbane Lions anyway. I seem to remember one for West Coast. Mitch Brown was 2 years to go on a contract, requested a trade to St Kilda, and West Coast refused. And so it has happened for sure.
Lob as well at Freo. He didn't get his wish.
Just kind of the level of player is. It's like your club captain.
I think this was definitely a bigger deal than Mitch Brown in 2012.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, definitely.
There was a bit of back and forth in the chat between Hazza and someone on the internet, two consistent contributors to the channel, talking about the Archie move. Who do you think got the better end there? Do you think Adelaide did by just being like, he's going to come to us anyway? Or do you think that, Brisbane lost out?
It's funny that you're asking me this because I had this in my notes to ask you guys as well. Because
I'm asking you.
It's a difficult one.
checkmate.
I was going to throw a philosophical question in these situations where the club holds. Who does, in a way, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? But who does win? Is there anything? Is there any capital in holding a player, even though you get nothing? Like particularly.
Yeah, so we're just catching up on the stream there. Yeah, looks like it's buffering, so I'm just going to hang tight here.
Jesse, I know we live together and we sort of live on top of each other, but there's no
I would love
reason
to go to dinner.
leave out your butt plugs.
You said you would wanted them when I was done. I'm just being polite.
I've got my own, thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Right-oh. It's old.
Can we get a weekly butt plug update as everything hasn't been? Well, yeah. Currently they're in the dishwasher. It's hard to tell.
Oh.
Yeah, they're
we're
just
back,
getting
we're
all of.
back.
We come back intermittently for my worst comments and then it buffers again.
We're fixed. We're alive. How are we coming through, Gang Dam?
Let us know how we're coming through. This has been a bit of a disjointed beginning to the live stream. I don't even know what's going on at the moment. But
What's going on?
We are back live. I think we're taken care of. We'll let you know in the next 10 minutes, I suppose.
Is Crazy Frog the best music video of all time?
No.
No, I disagree.
What
I
is?
think it's sick.
What is the best music video of all time?
I think we just go back to the content.
Oh, football. Okay, yeah, we're back.
That's a thing. Okay, so we were talking about who gets the better. Is there any capital, essentially? Is there any value in doing what Brisbane did and saying we're making a stand for the club?
I don't really think so, to be honest. I don't think this will be a particularly landmark case that changes how clubs go about it in the future. I mean, Adelaide, you ask who wins in this scenario, it ultimately depends on what happens next. If Brisbane get Archie to sign back on, then Brisbane win. But if he walks into the PSD and Adelaide sign him, they've effectively just gotten a pretty decent player for free and they come out looking better. Now, it's important to note that Brisbane are the most well-placed side to lose a player for free in this nature than of any club in the last, maybe since Richmond. Back-to-back, this won't mean a thing really to them. So it's an easy one to take a stand on to some extent because they would have received a second and a third. I don't think Adelaide here, well, at least I have nothing to suggest Adelaide here came with the intention of screwing Brisbane over. They just thought pick 16 was a bit too rich for Archie, and I probably agree with that assessment. And they had future picks. a future first even might have been a little bit steep for him. So I can understand why they took the stance that they did, and ultimately they held the power. And if Archie had started his career at the Brisbane Lions, he would have just walked as a free agent anyway. So
they get him for free now, Adelaide? Happy days?
Remains to be seen. So he has the right to sign on directly with Brisbane. He can't walk to any club as a delisted free agent because he was not formally delisted. So his means of getting into Adelaide is through the preseason draft, where 12 clubs will have picks before Adelaide, but it's probably the most likely outcome that Adelaide just get him and no one else takes him.
So no one can just be like, I don't know, let's say Sydney, I want to take Callum Archie, we're going to pick you up in the preseason draft. That just can't happen.
No, it can happen. It's just unlikely to, because clubs just don't really put players in that position when they want to get to a certain club. He hasn't gotten the outcome that he wants. West Coast even has the right to take him at pick 1.
In the same way, though, that Essendon have held Merritt against his will, if a team like West Coast, who has an opening pick, does it, can you kind of just apply the same logic?
100%. I fancy Callum Archie.
You're coming.
Yeah.
They can. No, West Coast have the right. It's just I'm separating what is likely to happen. Matthew Clark kind of ruled it out. And I think the idea is like, it's not as though Archie really kicked up its stink. He just simply requested a trade and didn't get looked after in that sense by either team, I suppose. And West Coast, I presume, and will probably not be the only club, don't want to insert themselves in that situation saying, I know you want to get to Adelaide, but you're coming to Perth, mate.
So Port Adelaide? They could.
I think I read that Port Adelaide would explore the possibility of it.
At least then you could make the argument that you're not taking them to a different place against their will.
Yeah.
You could have the same address and come over to Port Adelaide. But this is what the mechanism is for, right? That if they do have to walk to that draft, you go to the worst team, not the best team.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah, so West Coast taking him, in theory, would be like a win for the competition, in my opinion. No, what I mean is that would be an example of like the frameworks that are put in place for for competitive balance. Like that would be evidence of it working. But in reality, clubs don't really operate like that. So I think there's zero chance West Coast pick him up.
Do you reckon there's any chance at all that he ends up at Brisbane?
I think it is possible. I would be surprised. Brisbane presumably can't offer the money Adelaide can, so Archie has to change his mind on that front. And I doubt Brisbane really ramp up the money when they've just landed Draper and Allen. I think he's gone ski. I think Adelaide will get him for free is my prediction.
How does the salary work if he walks to, I don't know if you covered this before when you were talking, I can't remember.
I don't think I did.
If he walks to the preseason and West Coast or Port Adelaide did pick him up, how does the salary work?
The preseason draft, as far as I'm aware, you nominate your salary and clubs can see that when they make the decision. So regardless of whether it's Adelaide, West Coast, or Port Adelaide in this scenario, his price is locked.
They have to accept what he puts up.
Exactly. So he could put $1 million on his head. And I mean, he wouldn't, because then Adelaide would also not take him. But he can price his way out of certain teams. But you think the teams with the earlier picks, in theory, would probably have more salary cap?
Yeah, he would be unemployed in that case. Right?
Yeah. So he what do you do is set his price at what Adelaide offered him, I reckon.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the competition benefiting from it. That's kind of the idea of the whole thing. Just letting everyone know, if you were on the stream before and it cut out, just refresh your streams. I think it should be doing okay now. We are also going to do a little bit of a callback later on. So there will be a link in the description if anybody wants to jump on and speak with us, ask us a question or give us a statement for us to sort of talk about as well. We have 131 on the chat. Boys, do we have anything else to sort of touch upon before we go into the club by club?
No, we're going to probably jump into Adelaide and then Brisbane in that alphabetical order. So I think we can probably just seamlessly segue and then we'll talk to the chat as we're going and see how we go.
One thing I forgot to mention from our week, we had the Footy Fan Network launch on Thursday night, which was a lot of fun.
How was
Linked
that?
up with it. Yeah, it was good. Linked up with a bunch of creators, had some debates, did some podcasts. So keep your eyes peeled for some more content to come out over the off-season period through the Footy Fan Network run by Backchat.
I got stitched up a little bit in my debate. I'm looking forward to people seeing it and then ultimately disagreeing with me.
What was your debate about?
Eagles priority pick. I won't give any more away, but you'll see.
Yeah, okay. When you say you got stitched up, as in
the format that we decided to do the video. It was funny though. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
I'll tell you later because I don't want to give it away. But that should be out fairly soon, I hope.
I can't wear a soccer shirt that says Blake.
Blake said you can't wear a soccer shirt, typical Freo supporter.
I wore one in the last stream. It was just a Celtic one, bro.
Yeah.
You can't. Explain yourself, Blake.
Yeah.
I need more
I'll
information.
do what I want.
Up the Gut says, I miss footy. I miss footy too.
Yeah.
This is all just drama. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. Adelaide, in the trade period, they picked up Finbar Maley from the Kangaroos and pick 57. Pick 64 went the other way, as well as a future fourth, which we won't know. That is attached to Adelaide. Their current draft selections sit at 16, 48, 55, 64, 73, 75, 93, and 111.
Who do you think they'll take with pick 93?
It's a good question, one that we'll talk about as the video goes on. Obviously, a big piece of their trade period was the Callum Archie conundrum, and I think there's a conversation of who dropped the ball, etc. Essentially, listening through, if you want to go through the cracks of what Adelaide said, they didn't want to be pushed into sliding back from pick 16 on the draft board to 23. That's what they were going to lose. So it was that drop of 16 to 23. They obviously see more talent in the top end of the draft and weren't wanted to be dictated to there. How did they do, boys?
I just look at how many picks they have: 48, 55, 64, 73. That's academy matching bid numbers.
It is.
And I'm not, if I'm not mistaken, they don't have a notable one that they need to be considering the first 37 picks.
No, they've got Mitch Stevens, who's a father-son, but I'd be maybe even surprised if he got a bid at all. I think he's more likely to be rookied.
Yeah, I wondered if did they deliberately load up, and I don't have in front of me all the moves that led to having all of these thirds and fourths, but was this originally part of a plan to give more points to the Brisbane Lions? But then ultimately everything from 55 backwards doesn't have points value. That's probably what threw them.
So they only have one pick with two picks if you include 16, which they want to use.
Yeah.
48's really the only one that they could actually offer up for any capital.
Yeah, I suppose on draft night, what they could do is wait for the picks to fluctuate, because obviously picks will initially get pushed back, but then Brisbane, Gold Coast, they'll lose picks later once they match bids, which means in real time, some of these picks might have points on the night. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I wonder if Adelaide can strategically use those picks to move up. But anyway, that's a segue.
Another big part of their trade period was discussions with the D's midfielders, Track and Oliver, both linked there. Didn't end up pulling either of them off, and they need what?
Maybe that's what they did wrong.
That's good.
Nice. That midfield needs more firepower. So time will tell whether they miss out or not, depending on how both those players go at the two expansion sides. But yeah, they really, won't say failed on those two, but not getting Archie through the door. I feel that their trade period hinges on that a little bit. So they only bring in Finbar Maley, a North Melbourne man. What have they got with that player deal?
I was really pleasantly surprised by him in 2025. It took him a while to get into the team. He was a real sort of almost like a cult hero fan favourite, just with the way that he attacked the ball in the air. All noise coming out of Adelaide so far, and I forget the name of their list management or footy boss that spoke on AFL.com the other day, but he agreed with you, Jesse, that Finbar Maley will be used as that sort of fifth on the bench, the sub rule changing.
Okay.
With that fifth interchange position. He'll play that role. He'll play as like a second ruck, which he didn't really do at North Melbourne. He was more of a genuine sort of second key tall that would invariably pinch hit in the ruck for forward 50 stoppages, but they presumably want to use him as a little bit more of a running player. And we know they do have that sort of direct style of kicking to tools, so he'll just be an extra option for them. They want to get those athletic tools in, Dan Curtin, we talked about as well. So I think it's a good pickup. I think they've had to pay very minimal for him, and North Melbourne have really lost on that one.
Yeah, so how much has he actually played in the ruck for North Melbourne? Was it anything at all?
Never purely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I suppose he will just try and have to compete and be that forward presence is the idea. But
yeah, he's just a prospect. He's a very athletic player, and he's very aggressive with how he attacks the ball in the air.
Yeah, gotcha. So with Adelaide, obviously it could. We're having some sound problems.
This can't be real.
Yeah,
this cannot.
Sorry, guys. Just as 193 in the chat, as Drewsy's going to test that for us. Let's have a look at the chat. Dunning-Kruger says, what's with the sound? Well, we're trying to get to the bottom of that right now. But
were you hearing that, Producer Vic? Were you hearing the audio issues, or was it just the comment?
Because Lou has now said the sound is all
good.
good.
I think the sound's fine, to be honest. I think you just need to refresh your stream.
Yeah, thank you for the chat helping us out.
It's not fine?
And now we have an update saying it's not fine.
Live updates here at Footy from the Flash.
Thanks, guys. We do appreciate your patience. We've had some bad luck today. But
Mine's okay.
yeah, okay.
Lewis says sounds fine.
Lots of people saying it is all fine. Thank you very much. I'll just make my point on Archie then. I just to reiterate what we said before was simply that if Adelaide get Archie for free, then suddenly it's a very successful trade period.
If you're just refresh your stream, guys. I think there was a little bit of an audio issue, but it was just like a glitchy sort of a thing. Let us know though if it continues. It seems to be coming through okay on our end now.
Someone on the internet says, "You gentlemen sound buttery as ever." Now we don't know if that's good or bad. And now we're back to square one. Yeah.
Usually in the video space, buttery is a good adjective. Yeah.
Like Zach.
Mm.
I was simply saying right before you came back that I think, look, they missed out on Archie, they appeared to in real time, but obviously he can still walk there for free, in which case they've had a great outcome where they still have pick 16 in the draft. And look, as you correctly pointed out, they didn't address their midfield sufficiently, but I suppose if once you try for Petrarca and Oliver, decide it's not right or miss out, they're looking for some premium options, and they don't necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily go for like a Dev Robertson in the same way West Coast would. They're looking for more of that top end, and if it's not there on the market, then so be it.
You move on.
Exactly. So with pick 16, early thoughts, Dylan, who would be the player Adelaide would be looking at? Bearing in mind it's probably more like 21-2 or something like that.
Yeah, after the academy bids, of course. But this is probably the only question. Like, could they have done more to enhance their draft hand given the amount of South Australian talent? You would think with the Crows having a pick inside the top 20, they are going to want to go after one of those guys. So you'd be looking... They've sort of, at that point, they've missed all those really top-end South Australian players like Dyson Sharp, Sam Cumming, potentially Blake Threadgold, although I reckon if he is on the board at that pick, they would definitely go after him.
Yep.
Another one would be Harley Barker, who's a really top-end player. And I think in that top end, that is probably most of them, if I'm thinking off the top of my head. Mitch Marsh, if he happened to slide, but I don't think he would be available. And Aiden Schubert would be the other one, wouldn't he?
Would Schubert or Marsh really be right for Adelaide, given their strengths?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, because I see Marsh evolving in the AFL as maybe a bit of a Dan Curtin type. Like, he's playing as a third key position forward at the moment, and he's pretty dominant at the level. But I think with his elite kicking skills, like actually field kicking skills, he could play like a wing role, even a half back role, be a bit of an interceptor, or play that Dan Curtin sort of a role, which you kind of think they've just picked up Finbar Maley, who they want to play also in that sort of running ruck role. Do they actually need a player like that? Do they need a Schubert, given they've got Riley Thilthorpe, Darcy Fogarty? Taylor Walker will retire, but you probably don't need 3 key position tools either. I'd have thought they'd be going for one of those more running players like Cumming.
Jevon Philippou was just a nomination there. So that's probably right in the range still. It's still early to really lock that in, but that could be certainly the sort of player they're after.
Yeah, and I think Jevon will be some clubs will really rate him and other clubs won't rate him at all, just given his kind of maybe inconsistencies across the season. So I don't know, like, do you think they could have done a little bit more to offer up some future picks to be able to get into this draft a little bit better?
Yeah, they possibly could have, but I think they're probably a little bit embroiled in the Callum Archie situation that their future second and future third was offered to the Brisbane Lions. So would a team have really given up capital to, say, trade into 2027 with Adelaide? Probably not. That's probably too far into the future. So maybe they just didn't have any takers.
Yeah, I like that.
They can swing the, what's the saying I'm going for? They can reshuffle the deck with, Dan Curtin, Sid Draper, Rochelle as well, a bunch of young guys that they can switch the role up if they do need to change how the midfield looks and whatnot. So they've got
definitely
some flexibility.
Drafted pretty well in the last couple of years, but you probably, like, just holistically looking at that team, when you look at the mids and the smaller running type players, they're probably, if anything, you'd want a little bit more of those like highly skilled players, I suppose, more than grunt players. If we're looking at that kind of Dyson Sharp versus like Jevon Philippou.
Yeah.
So he would suit them, I think.
Red Mazray says, is there a chance of getting one of Carlton's picks? Possibly. Or one of Melbourne's picks. With Carlton, they could offer 16 and later points to move up to, say, pick 11, potentially.
Carlton would work.
Yeah.
That would be the one, because I don't think Melbourne would be that keen to trade.
No, I think Melbourne's going to move up, if anything, or just hold. They're in a nice spot of the draft, I would have thought.
Unless the 16 becomes part of a deal to get higher into the top 3
Yes.
for the Ds. But yeah, Carlton's pick, what have they got, 9 and 11?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. So those picks are definitely on the board. Overall, putting a line under Adelaide, what are we saying grade-wise?
I didn't think of it in terms of grades.
Are we doing grades?
We can do.
We don't have to.
Yeah.
It's very cliche.
We can do. I would say probably a C. They could get Archie for free, but because it hasn't eventuated yet, I almost separate that. And they didn't get any other targets. They got Finbar Maley, of course, and they hold pick 16. I don't think there's too much really to write home about, bearing in mind it could be a very decent result getting Archie as a DFA. But again, we're not talking serious moves there.
Yeah.
I'll go C-. I think just not being able to get Archie done. They held on to Butso, which was a win.
Don't we all?
I was thinking C+ more, just on the fact that they haven't. I reckon there's some serious teams in this trade period that it's a clear loss.
They went for Sanders too, which I forgot to say.
They did go for Riley Sanders. That got quiet though, didn't it?
They threw that hat in the ring for Draper.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So they failed on all their targets. They're getting a D.
That's fair.
Okay.
They actually did fail on all their targets, now I think of it.
Yeah, I
Draper,
suppose so.
they spoke to a couple of midfielders.
It never felt like any of those were
Sanders.
seriously going to go through though, did it?
No, I think they were.
Draper's a bit of a miss.
But in the same way, just comparing, say, North Melbourne, would you mark North Melbourne down for not getting Kerno? Because they apparently had their hat in the
because
ring.
that's just like saying I want Lionel Messi in 2013.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not going to happen.
Lionel.
Lionel. I mean, I suppose the Draper one, they had the
pronunciation.
carrot of bringing him home. So that's maybe a bit more of a miss because it was more likely. But were they really likely to get Sanders, given he's probably going to be looking to go to Tasmania in a couple of years anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brisbane, they brought in Oscar Allen and Sam Draper. God, the poor Premiers bringing in 2 elite talents. Brandon Starcevic goes out. They hold pick 17, 23, 44, 51, 59, 68, 79, 97, and 115 in the draft. Oscar Allen fits straight into that forward line, replaces Joe Danaher, who's been out for a year now, even though Ty Gallup had a bit of a breakout year. And the big O retired. So Sam Draper comes in and will eventually be their best ruck, or if not already ahead of the big Darcy Fort. Good trade period for the Lions. You'd be pretty happy with that.
Oh, yeah, with the incomings. I think at the start of the year, we held concerns about, what are they going to do without Joe Danaher? How do they fill that void? And we've known about Allen and Draper for a little bit, at least certainly before they won the second premiership. And now that they've won it, even they themselves might be looking back on it going, did we really need to go that hard? Ty Gallup had an amazing final series, and Logan Morris obviously backed up a really good debut season. So it's almost like
out, though. I feel like one injury and Allen.
I was also going to
struggles.
say, surely this is a pretty easy fix because one of McInerney or Fort just goes out of the team. Allen comes in to play that other forward role.
Yeah.
And then Draper's the ruck.
And then the big O retired. So there's a spot freed up right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's no doubt. I think the players are good targets and they've done well to secure them. It's just, I don't know if it's almost like in hindsight, they went for these players and then they won the premiership anyway.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't go for them.
It will be interesting to see how these two operate in a great system. Obviously, Allen showed some really promising signs in a struggling West Coast team. Was he wasn't a part of the premiership team, was he, Allen?
No, he was on the list, but he was the emergency on the grand final.
And then Sam Draper has been at times one of the more exciting rucks in the competition. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go in a good system. They lose Brandon Starcevic and probably Callum Archie as well. I'll give him a B.
Can I just come back here? I just want to ask that question about Starcevic and Archie, presuming that Archie leaves. Is it a net positive with Allen and Draper? Is it as simple as they feel more positional needs, so it's better? Or is there an argument that Starcevic and Archie are equal quality and it's kind of equal, even maybe higher quality going out versus the quality coming back in?
I don't think so. I think
I'd say
Allen
equal.
and Draper are better. Even if Allen had a pretty poor year this year, I still think on overall talent and the value of having a quality player in that position, I feel like a as good as Starcevic is, filling the void of small defender, medium-sized defender, it's you can find those players cheaper rather. If you look at some of the best like small lockdown defenders in the league, none of them were like really high picks to help illustrate that point.
Archie is a bit of a curveball one for me. Like I agree with Starcevic because just how good he's been in big games.
Yeah.
It's a little bit intangible, isn't it? Like I sort of agree with you overall. I suppose it comes down to who are the players that are going to come in and fill that role. Who's on their list right now?
Duday and
Tom
Kitty
Duday.
Coleman.
Yeah, Duday and Coleman, like they're different players to Starcevic, but
forgot about that.
I don't think there is depth in that position to begin with.
Yeah,
Archie, like you said, he's a little bit more unique, and while they have obviously good ground level players and Kai Lohmann, I mean he's already in the team, right? So filling that void will be a little bit tricky, but again, it's not like they don't have more goal scoring power than ever before, and Allen coming in to at least take the pressure and focus off a Logan Morris will have broader benefits, I think.
Yeah, I like that. And the picks, obviously, they moved a few picks around, which is more than anything just to get points for Dan Annable. We mentioned that they did try, like with the Archie situation, it was that pick swap, right? Basically, I just wanted to read Dom Ambrogio's comments on Archie, the Brisbane, I think he's a list manager, isn't he? Or is he a national recruiter?
Couldn't care less.
I forget.
No, I'm joking.
He said,
I don't know.
the reality is a future third is window dressing, particularly for a successful club. That pick can end up back in the 50s, and picks in the 50s are very rarely used. So effectively, we're looking at a fairly late-ish pick, and we just didn't find that acceptable. We were really clear about that from the start. They always say that, these people. They always say, we're very transparent about this, or we're very clear on this. He continued, ultimately, Cow is not a free agent. So fair enough, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess in the end of the day, like that second round pick would just be absorbed anyway. Or no, it was a future second round pick, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, it wasn't just a future third that they were offered. It really was the case that this was the best offer they were going to get. And I think Brisbane has the luxury of being able to take a strong stance on this, given, where they're at. So them literally losing Archie for nothing does not have the same impact that it might on, say, 12 of the teams of the competition, and therefore they can take this stance, and it really probably doesn't mean too much for them. Nor does I think it was a extremely powerful and courageous stance to take either.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the word, like the phrasing there, particularly for a successful club, there is a little bit of arrogance in that, I feel, because
Was he not referring to Adelaide though?
the reality is a future third is window dressing.
Particularly for a successful club. I read that as like Adelaide's a successful club.
Got you. I read that as Brisbane are a successful club, so that pick for them is more useless. But you're probably right.
Because it was to be tied to Adelaide. I suppose it's ambiguous. But
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, sorry. I took a bit of Whoops.
Grades.
I'm saying A-.
I'm happy with that. Look, Starcevic and Archie, that's just kind of, there's not too much they could have done to prevent those, I think. So like naturally, like as the team strengthens and the salary cap squeeze happens, we can't just expect Brisbane to retain all of their players. And I presume at least with Starcevic it was a go-home factor. So don't really mark them too harshly for that. And they ended up getting the outcome they wanted from Starcevic. I suppose the minus for you is just the failure to get a better deal for Archie. Or any deal whatsoever?
Yes, yeah, it was partly that, and just the fact that they brought in obviously two really good players and lost two.
Yeah.
So I felt like A was just, if I'm comparing it to other teams that I gave A to, it was just a little bit less favourable than those. But people in the comments are saying that Kitty Coleman or Alex Duday will fill that Starcevic role.
Tom Duday.
Yeah, Tim Duday.
Tim.
Yeah.
Tom.
Countdown
Alex.
Racers, sing this. You said Tom Duday.
Tom.
You said Alex Duday.
Alex Duday.
You said that.
Did I?
Yes.
What am I doing?
I don't know.
I've lost the plot.
Oh, because it says Alex B. Duday.
Oh.
So it's because Alex said the comment.
Yeah, I was like, I wouldn't have called him Alex, surely.
Oh, man. I don't know.
I would say Duday would be better at the Starcevic role specifically. I think Kitty Coleman probably can't defend well enough.
Yeah, no, I agree with that assessment. And Ainsworth as well, he's coming back from an ACL, says
I think
Lou?
he'll be back later in the year. I think he did his ACL.
Oh, Ainsworth. Yeah, he's a bit of a downgrade on Starcevic, but he's a similar type.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like he did his injury like halfway through the year. So, maybe we'll come back in the back half. I'm not too sure about that
The
one.
Carlton Blues were very busy this trade period.
They were.
Incoming, Ben Ainsworth, Campbell Chesser, Ollie Florent, Will Hayward, and Liam Reedy. They also got through the door pick 9, pick 11, pick 43, 54, 67, 72. Sydney's first rounder for 26 and 27. So they are
And this year's.
stacked. Yeah, well, that was 9. That was 11.
Yeah.
That came through as well. Outgoings were, of course, Charlie Curnow, Tom De Koning, Corey Durden, and Jack Silvani. So they clearly lost a lot of talent there, but they're stacked in the draft. And as their football boss said, Chris Davies, we're a more balanced team in 2026.
They have a lot better front half options now, I feel like, particularly with Ainsworth, Hayward. You rate Campbell Chesser. I haven't really seen much of him.
He's still a prospect.
Yeah.
But I obviously think there's some.
You could just
potential
say you don't rate him, Druzy.
I don't really have an opinion other than he was a wasted first round pick. And then Ollie Florent as well.
Don't have an opinion other than this extremely strong opinion.
Well, he was a wasted first round pick. That's
I think
just
he
fact.
left.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's wasted.
Yeah, now it is.
Yeah. And Ollie Florent. So their biggest issue has been their ball movement for a while now. They've sort of relied on the long to Curnow and Mackay strategy. So they've strengthened. We spoke about adding Will Hayward, sort of keeps that structure with losing Charlie Curnow. And then, they've brought in a ruck with Liam Reedy. Brought in 3 first-round picks, so pretty good, I would say. Although it's hard to replace Charlie Curnow and TDK. So bittersweet for the Blues, I'd say.
Interesting. I took it as a big, successful period for me. I think Will Hayward, from a wins on the board factor coming into next year and future years, is actually, it's a like for like with Charlie Curnow. So I think that is barely a loss for them on field. I know people are going to disagree with that, but structurally, I think it really works. I think the big one that they're losing, my voice is gone. I'm having a tough stream here, guys. Just bear with me. Tom De Koning is the big one from a talent perspective. I think you can absorb the Durden and Jack Silvani, albeit Jack Silvani's kind of an important structural piece. And then you just look at the capital that they've brought in and the father-sons they've got over the next couple of years, which has to be a factor in grading them on a trade, in my opinion. Ben Ainsworth's going to be really good for them in the front half, which probably I feel like that gives them the edge on the Curnow deal in isolation. I don't really expect too much from Ollie Florent. Campbell Chess is a bit of a wild card, and I don't expect anything from Liam Reedy, but they'll play Pitnet in the ruck for next year, who's a more than competent ruckman, I would say. This is, for me, a straight A+.
What? Come on now.
Look, there's 2 ways I think you can assess the trade period, because you can assess on the net in versus outs and has the list actually gotten better?
No.
Or you can have a look at how did Carlton handle this situation that may have been out of their control? Do we blame them for not matching a $2 million offer for Tom De Koning? I would say no. Do you blame them for letting Charlie Curnow go when you accept that they're not going to win a premiership probably for the duration of his career, and they kind of let a player go that wasn't really right for the club or the system, right? If he wants out, you got to turn those players over. Well, often you have to turn those players over. Silvani going is not an ideal situation, but also not a hugely key piece. How well did Carlton handle this situation? Well, they've heavily invested in the draft. They've already got 2 firsts next year to consider for a Cody Walker bid. They're in a position to potentially move up into the top 5. And how they do that is a little unclear at this point, but they could take a pick before Harry Dean. They also, considering they have these academy and father sons, there's diminishing returns on just getting draft picks left, right, and centre for them.
Yep.
So then they thought, okay, we need to be compensated in established players. Hayward and Ainsworth, I think, are good players. And certainly, Ainsworth at his best, I think, has been a very good player. Obviously, there's still some doubt that he translates that. Liam Reedy was purely just for depth. Campbell Chesser, it's a choice between pick 41 or a 4-year player who has traits that benefit you. I think that's actually the right move versus taking pick 41, which would be absorbed anyway, and then Florent and get another established player they've just paid nothing for. So they've maybe they're not strengthened their best 22, but they've mitigated a lot of that loss.
That's what I feel.
And then they've put themselves in a good position to get these high-end prospects in the draft. So I think they did really well. Is the team better? I'm unconvinced, but have they handled this situation very well? I think yes.
Man, there's some
There's
debates
some
going on in the comments
There are
right
some
now.
debates.
Lou has said Liam Reedy will cover TDK easy. That
That's
has got to be the worst take I've seen. As a Freo fan, he's not going to offer you nearly as much as TDK did. And I know that Carlton fans are saying, oh, TDK, he isn't that much of a loss, bit overrated. You could see as soon as Carlton's season went in the gutter, he stopped giving a shit.
Yeah, he'll be great.
In that 2023, 2024 period, he was one of the most exciting rucks in the competition. Looked like he was going to be one of the best rucks. And even Max Gawn said he will be one of the best rucks, if not the best ruck in the competition one day. It's going to really hinge on how successful these first round picks are that Carlton take, but you're not going to really replace a player of the caliber of Charlie Curnow and TDK. So yeah, I think A+ is way overs. I can see that, they're they will bring in some good young talent, but you don't know who that's going to be. And yeah, Will Hayward is a good player, but he's no Charlie Curnow.
The only thing is, Drew, I disagree with that. They sort of do know who the players that they're going to bring in over at least the next couple of years.
With those picks though?
No, but that's sort of irrelevant. That's just value.
Some of them.
So
like Cody Walker and
Cody Walker
and
for
Jack
next year
Ison
for
and
sure.
Harry
But
Dean.
So they'll use those picks that they traded in to take Cody Walker?
Well, no, and there was a comment that just came through which we should address. Somebody asked, what do people mean when they say the Blues will get ahead of the Dean bid? What they mean by that is use those picks 9 and 11 to trade up higher to, say, picks 1, 2 or 3 or 4, for example, which means when the bid comes, because the other clubs in the competition set the value for players like Jack Ison and Harry Dean. They bid. In this case, we're talking about Harry Dean. So say it's Melbourne that are the ones that make the bid at pick 7. Yep. If Carlton's pick is ahead of 7, they can select a player before that, and the pick value won't be absorbed in that bid.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Yep, that made sense. I'll give them. I think they wanted to clean out with their culture, and losing TDK, Curnow and Silvani was a part of that. TDK more monetary value-wise, but I'll say they handled it well, but too early to say. So I'm going to give them a B- for now.
That's so on the fence.
Yeah, because I
Are you
can't.
Matthew Lloyd?
Yeah.
I think you have to accept, like, Carlton did need to re-image their list this year. They had to be aggressive in one direction or the other. And they have been able to attack the draft, get a really good deal for Charlie Curnow, in my opinion, and also make some other moves to ensure that their best 22 is not that far off what it was last year. Obviously there is a hit there. I'm not trying to gloss over that, but at the same time, we're not expecting the arse to fall out of this team because of those recruits. So I think they improved their future. They consolidated their present. And I think soon the shift will become about the Sam Walsh to Jagger Smith. I know Walsh is a bit older. Cody Walker, Harry Dean, that generation, Ollie Hollands. Soon the focus will be on those guys, but they've set themselves up to not fall apart in the meantime. If you're looking at it from a fan perspective and you're looking what Carlton, they're giving you a pretty clear message. It's pretty easily understandable. You know, a lot of clubs, like the supporters come out of a trade period and they're like, what are we doing?
Port Adelaide.
Yeah. This is very understandable, and I think they've done contextually, given the situation, as well as they could have done. A lot of people are asking who they would target if they did get ahead of the bid. Who do you think, Jesse?
So we have to be realistic about what pick they could get. I don't think they really get into 1, 2 or 3, and I think Richmond's pick 4 might be gettable. So let's say it's pick 4, and then rule out maybe Sullivan Roby, Willem Dersma, and maybe those are the 2 you'd rule out at this point.
Possibly Cooper Duff-Tyler,
Possibly
which would be very important.
Yeah, I actually think he's a decent chance of getting through both West Coast and Richmond. So I would say that is it a yes to Cooper Duff-Tyler if he's there? Probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that actually is a suitable pick.
And that's the TDK replacement.
Exactly, yeah. So that's probably their hope. Outside of that, would they go for a Sam Grill, like if he's there? I know that's somewhat early. Some people think he'll go a little bit later, but I think it's still pretty up in the air what will happen there. Maybe not a Dyson Sharp being right for them, a Sam Cumming maybe, but I think Cooper Duff-Tyler is probably the ideal scenario there.
I feel like the fans, with a Dyson Sharp type pick, the fans would riot because it's so much of that old narrative of the contested ball clearance sort of team. But
Yeah.
if he was there at that pick, I mean, I think he's one that they would consider. But yeah, Grill would sort of make sense from that speed perspective.
Yeah.
But they might just like somebody. I feel like this draft is pretty even amongst that sort of next crop of players outside the top 3 or 4. So somebody like a Sam Cumming, they could really like. Or like even a Jevon Philippou, you could see him like making a late run.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's still a little bit up in the air. And a very flat draft, it seems like, outside of maybe Dersma. It seems like there is a fair bit of variety and potential for players to bolt up.
I feel like there's going to be, between picks 5 and 15, there'll be a lot of, it's just who you like and who's more suitable for your team, because you throw a blanket over a lot of those players.
Totally
a lot of people saying Lockie Doveston, who I think is definitely, with Owies and Durden going out, they've probably still got Jesse Motlop there. Zach Williams is playing that forward role, but do they really have that top-end quality player? Doveston would certainly do that, and I think if they want to be aggressive, a player like that would be great as well. So I'm sticking with my A+. I know it's controversial, but I like it.
Yeah.
I just think if you lose the 2-time Coleman medalist and the future best ruck in the comp, it's hard to be that positive. I know they got value back, but they're going to be hard players to replace. Collingwood brought in Jack Buller, Brody Mychek out. The Pies gave up a 2026 third-round selection as a part of the deal that landed ex-Swan Jack Buller, but they did receive a 2026 fourth. This was probably one of the more quiet clubs of the trade period. Hard to really make much of what the Pies did.
No, I guess we can sort of take a look at where they're at, and their hands are a little bit tied, you know, from a salary cap point of view and from a capital point of view. Get anything done. Like, they went to the party with Curnow. That was a weird way to say that, but you know, they tried to mingle at the Charlie Curnow party, and who else did they have a crack at? Bailey Humphrey. They just inserted themselves in these positions, but everyone's like, there is no way that Collingwood could get a deal done. So they're kind of just showing up because they're Collingwood.
I just pictured Justin Leppich there, you know, like the old American Pie movie, where he comes over and just laughs at that group of girls.
I don't remember that scene, but great film.
That's funny.
I actually watched that movie the other day.
Yeah, but they're real like no hope of getting some of these players. We know that there was some interest in Simpkin. So there was a late Jordan De Goey story. I don't know what happened here. I was talking about it with Swoop Luke, and we were joking, like, did John Ralph just hit post on a draft from 2 years ago? Because he posted something about De Goey leaving that nobody had heard of. At least that was my interpretation of what happened. So overall, they lose Mychek and they go to the draft and start with their first pick at pick 39. Do you remember what happened to their first rounder this year? But Dan Houston?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
Actually, Justin Leppich spoke on the Jordan De Goey again on AFL.com on the De Goey situation, and actually did kind of say, I'm not 100% sure where this story came from.
Yeah, okay.
And most clubs were pretty honest about talking about the players that potentially investigated a trade, at least. Would you say the Leah one was maybe a potential player that they could have bought through?
Possibly.
Salary cap, I guess.
Yeah, I would just say, like, if the Saints offered $800K, would Leak take a much more reasonable offer to go to Collingwood? Maybe not. So, yeah, what I'm saying there is he may have been a little bit overpriced as an asset, so not a huge priority for them. Could have been worth trading pick 39 for, though, I would have thought, or a future second if that were the case. So, ultimately, look, Collingwood haven't really moved the needle, and they've lost Brody Mychek, who is an important avenue to goal. As people are saying in the comments, they'll get some players back from injury. Where did that comment go? Sideline players from 2025 will help us improve, says Voidoid Generation. That may be the case. But I would say they didn't really move in any particular direction with their list, and I do think Mychek is a loss from a competing in 2026 point of view.
It's funny how people talk about their club like, oh, we're going to have like all these players back from injury. But it's like, you know, injuries can also happen in the future. Like, I feel like we've been waiting for Zach Reid to have a full season of footy since he's been drafted, and he never has. Different club, but
Plus, you might get those players coming back from injury, and then Pendlebury and Sidebottom significantly drop off in
like
2026.
De Goey's been injury prone for much of his career. So, just a little statement there about
they've had
all
a
these players back.
pretty good run with like the Dacos brothers as well. I know they're pretty durable, robust type players, but they've had a good run. Like Nick Dacos has never really had a serious injury. He's had little things that he's picked up across the season. Do we like I suppose you could make a narrative that Jack Buller is a bit of an age profile move for the Brody Mychek one, but then that doesn't really fit with where they are what they're going to be aiming for in 2026, because it's a big if Jack Buller can actually play a significant role.
Yeah. He showed some good signs. I think Collingwood's hands were tied here. I just want to refer to a comment that someone on the internet says Pies list is about to fall off a cliff. I do agree it looks that way, but my prediction is in 12 months' time, they're going to blow up their list and probably sign like 2 high-quality free agents. Maybe one of them is Ben King. Don't know if they'll be successful with Zach Butters. They could be. But if they're both free agents, watch them shed a lot of the older players on their list and just re-image their list and then come back again in a couple of years after that.
I find it really hard to see Collingwood getting better next year.
Next year, it's questionable. I think the thing is, they're still like such a good team that you could believe that they'd make a finals run.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can consider them a genuine premiership chance.
Yeah, I think they've peaked with the profile that they have. Not to say that they're going to absolutely fall off a cliff and need a full-scale rebuild, but yeah, it's hard to see.
I think we'd accept if they did make a significant run, it would be a bit of a smash and grab from outside the 4.
Yeah. Seems unlikely, but like I said, there was only so much they could do this year. So they're going to probably have to drag their feet into 2026, and then I reckon watch for fireworks next year.
People bringing up some of the players like Harvey Harrison, Ed Allen, Will Parker, Charlie West.
None of them are going to be like massive needle movers.
That's the issue. I mean, most of those players like Charlie West and Will Hayes were the 2 players that they got in the 2024 draft, and they look good, and they look like they've picked pretty well for where they were on the draft board, but the reality is they're players that were taken outside the top 40 picks.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of them actually becoming stars is still pretty low.
Ed Allen as well, like, has good games, big body, but yeah, he's not going to be like an all-Australian caliber player, and obviously not every player is, but that just young talent is just really not going to move the needle for them. I
think the significant improvement that they could get in 2026 would be that Dan Houston, who they traded for, becomes the player that they expected him to be. He just had a pretty insignificant season. If he becomes a top 3 or 4 player at the club, maybe.
Look out. Essendon, they brought in Braden Fiorini, that is notably Dylan's favourite player, and they lost Sam Draper, which became the pick 21 for compensation. They held on to Zach Merritt, which was the biggest talking point off the trade period. How do we feel about that now that the dust has settled? Keeping Zach Merritt and, obviously losing Sam Draper and bringing in Fiorini. What do we think of Essendon?
They hold a really strong draft hand, and therefore you could make the argument trading out Merritt to strengthen draft hands this year and next probably doesn't have the same allure as if they didn't have a first rounder at all. So I can understand why that got less tempting for them. My position was that they probably should have traded Zach Merritt personally. But I suppose, what would it look like for me to be wrong? Essendon getting close to finals next year. And I think if they fail to do that, then they're going to have a 31-year-old Zach Merritt who requests a trade in 12 months' time.
Their fans are pretty bullish on the fact that if they can keep their team fit, they can make like a top 11 to 12 push, I feel. Because in the last 2 seasons, they've started the year well when they've had their full team on the park. Ridley was another one that wanted to get away to Brisbane. They held on to him. And apparently a lot of his decision hinged on the high performance aspect. So that's probably the biggest space to watch for Essendon next year. Can they keep their best 22 on the park? And can Merritt help push for the finals now that they held on to him?
I actually kind of agree. I think Essendon is probably disrespected as a playing group at the moment for
100%.
The ability that they actually have. And this happens, after an injury crisis. We well did it with Richmond. We did it with West Coast and look, they got bad again, but there was a brief glimmer where we looked like we were wrong about them for about 5 games. And Essendon, I think, might be in the same boat where I think they're actually, their best 22 can be more competitive than people are anticipating next year. So that's where I could be wrong. Like if they have a really good, say, injury run and they take picks 5 and 6 to the draft and draft, the rising star winner next year, like this narrative could look very different. And at that point, I'll probably say, okay, maybe you were right to hold on to Merritt. But it kind of hinges on that because if they continue to stagnate without Merritt, with Merritt there, then I think it will be reflected on as a missed opportunity.
Well, let's be honest. The start of 2025, they were probably sitting in around 10th or 11th. They were in that window before the injury crisis.
6 of their first 10. which
so
would
they're
put
probably
them,
top 8.
Yeah, in the mix at least. I
In
can't
the-
remember exactly.
Yeah, so they are a competitive side. And I actually think if you look across the lines, as much as people from the outside often talk about their list being really poor and their drafting being really poor, it's actually pretty good. They do have a lot under that Dodorio regime. They do have regime. They do have a lot of misses in the top end of the draft, but they found a few really good players along the way, like Sam Durham, obviously is a bit of a wild card in that midfield. It's just tricky because the merit situation is it's such an intangible, right? We don't know we can't say what that's going to be like for him coming back into the team. We think he's like a professional player and he'll probably just put his head down. Same with Ridley in a way. You don't know how those are going to go, but given that it's all going to hinge on how well they pick players. I think this is one of the most important drafts that they've had in the last 10 years with 2 top end selections. They've got to pick well. And if they do, they compare those guys with Kako and Caddy and the NGAs and the future father-sons that they have in Buick. I think it's a lot. It's an overkill on how much people get the boots into Essendon.
Yeah, I do agree.
They really are the whipping boy of the AFL Essendon, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're just an easy target, I think, like the drug saga.
Their first round drafting has been patchy at best. Now, I think Kako and Caddy look good, but you have to admit, like Ben Hobbs, Elijah Sardis, Archie Perkins, and Nick Cox. Yeah. I do think Zach Reed can still make it, but those 4 don't inspire a lot. On the other hand, they have unearthed Nick Martin, Sam Durham. I think Jai Caldwell is actually a good player. Archie Roberts is a good player. There is actually...
They're all late picks or Jai Caldwell was
Gus
a trade.
Clark, another one, good find this year.
Yes. Yeah, so there is a bit about them, and I've made the point before. I don't think Essendon... Well, I mean, we should probably let go of the merit thing, but I think had they lost merit, I don't think they're as exposed as perhaps some believe that they would be.
Totally agree. I think Caddy, you just said that Caddy looks good. I think he will be a star.
Yeah.
He looks like an absolute star. Kako, I think, will be a really high-end player as well. So much. And that's the new regime because Dodoro only left in end of 23 or start of 24.
Yeah.
But Rose that's his first draft.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
So
very West Coast flavour there at Essendon. Matthew Rosa, Craig Vozzo, and Rowan O'Brien, all ex-West Coast people.
Yeah, that's a worry.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Whoa. They were there for the premiership.
Yeah. Fair.
Or not Rosa, actually.
A few people putting Essendon can't defend and stuff like that. More of a coaching system issue. Not as a North fan, I'm probably not super sold on Brad Scott, but as far as I think he is a good coach at like a game day coach at putting something together to win games.
He's good for where they are.
Probably. He's got a lot of experience.
Just the ability to run a football club that's in the position that Essendon are. You wouldn't want an inexperienced coach to come in, and I feel like as an organisation, he is a good man to have at the helm right now.
Absolutely.
Just a quick one before we move on to the Purple Scum. 2 picks for Essendon. Off the top of the nog, 5 and 6. Who do you think are the most suitable?
Oh, it's so tricky at 5 and 6 because it's that just outside that top. Because presumably around about Ewland will have had a bid and a matched bid. Patterson will be close as well.
Yeah. Maybe even Animal. We don't know yet, but
maybe Animal. I think Animal's likely for top 5, top 6 as well.
Cooper Duff. I think there's a chance he's still there.
That's what I was going to say. That'll be so interesting if he is still there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Essendon will want to target those mids and fast-footed players. I think if Sam Grill's there, they'd take him.
Yeah,
for sure.
We got a suggestion from Kay saying Taylor and Sharp. Xavier Taylor is definitely a contender, I would have thought.
I reckon that'd be a great draft.
Yeah.
For Essendon, they bring in probably some much-needed leadership in Sharp. A lot of people see him as a future captain of an AFL club, so that would be great. I don't think there's significant go-home factor with him either, which would be the only thing in drafting. When you've got Greaves there, you've got Grill, players like that that are from Melbourne. Sharp's flag would be the South Australian thing. Taylor, they do need that bigger-bodied midfielder, but they also do need fast-footed players on the outside, right? Grill could come into half-back and run the footy, carry the ball for them a little bit. Let's say, for me, if I'm calling it the best possible draft for Essendon, I actually do like Taylor to the Bombers. I reckon Taylor's your leadership pick, and then Sam Grill as a runner.
Bit of a Ridley comparison?
Yeah, a bit of a Ridley.
Yeah.
Bit of a Weddle.
Yeah.
Bit of a Sicily.
Yeah.
He's got he's more athletic than Sicily.
Yeah.
But has the decision-making traits of a Sicily as well. Just
probably more offensive than Ridley in the way that he turned out. But I feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, Ridley was less like lockdown than he has developed into. I could be wrong on that.
At his draft age, you mean?
Yeah, like when he was at first at Essendon, then I think he's sort of involved into this undersized key defender. That's the way I remember. I could have that wrong.
Yeah, he's always one for me that I've expected to come on and get more of the ball, Ridley,
okay.
but it's never really happened. He had that one season where he won the BNF and his output was really high from an offensive point of view. Brad Scott hasn't seemed to use him like that. Maybe that's the body. Maybe he's just protecting his body a little bit, and he, rather than being like running up the field, he wants him a little bit deeper.
Yep.
That's probably a factor in that. But yeah, no, Taylor would be a great sort of understudy, I think, to Ridley as that type. And he's just very versatile. Like his movement for someone that tall is right up there. He was third in the agility test. He's got really high end speed as well. So he'd be a sort of X factor player, I feel. And I like the Sharp call. I may be swinging that to Sharp.
I think with Sharp though, like maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way, but I think you've just sidelined Sardis and Hobbs. Like, are you going to take the risk on another sort of like stoppage focused player? I'm aware that he's probably the highest rated, but I mean, Sardis had his raps at that draft age too.
Wasn't Hobbs really highly touted as well? Didn't they say he was going to be like a Selwood type?
Yeah.
Everyone that's a contested ball winner is the next
that's
Selwood.
tough.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he went pick 12. So not super highly rated, but
I
that
think
was a strong draft
Sardis,
too.
it's funny actually.
Yeah, okay.
That was the raps on him.
On Sardis?
Yeah, which I don't see at all
No.
at AFL level. He looks more like a contested player, like a first hands player. But I think Sharp's more, the floor is higher.
Yeah.
I feel. And I think that the character piece is a really important part there in a young side, similar to West Coast.
Yeah.
So he'd be a good one. But I wouldn't knock them if they went after something a little bit more aggressive, like a Sam Grewal, like I said.
Yeah, everything Essendon says, I would probably rather more upside in early picks. I can relate to that feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Everything Essendon loves Harley Barker.
Ah, yeah.
I can put that out there. That'd be a more of a 20s pick, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah.
Heave ho, boys. We're on to the Dockers.
I'm going to get a glass of water while you do this then.
This will be boring.
Yeah.
Let's shit on Freo all the time because we're better than both your clubs combined. All right. We brought in Judd McVie, Will Brodie and Liam Reedy, who weren't playing, left the club. We own all of our future selections still, and we moved down the draft order to get that Judd McVie deal done. Pick 20 is our top pick in the 2025 draft. The AFL website here making a good point, saying that the Judd McVie trade is very similar to the Jordan Clark trade 4 years ago, where Freo traded pick 24 for Geordie Clark, and we traded pick 23 for Judd McVie, both similar type running defenders. And Jordan Clark was the first player to reach out to Judd McVie, and they said they're keen to work together. So the ball movement from the back half improves. D's fans have been pretty cut about Judd McVie leaving because he's really just broken out in the last 12 months. So nothing really changes. We bring in a quality player, don't really lose anything, move down the draft order. Pretty solid trade period, but not really much to make of it.
When I was actually being serious when I said it's a bit of a boring trade period, just from the perspective that it's really hard to say you lost or majorly won. I think McVie's an awesome pickup.
Yeah.
But you paid about market value for him, right?
Yeah. And we didn't really lose anything either, other than a pick swap.
I would say that going from, what were you at? Pick
I think it was 13.
13. So
It's now 13 with West Coast.
Gotcha.
So
you went from 13 to 20. As much as that doesn't sound like too big of a slide, it's significant enough that I think you go out of that kind of top group of players. Like you said, Jacob Farrow was one on your mind. You're outside that now. Yeah, clearly. So you lose something there. But McVie is better than anything that you could expect to get in the draft, I think, at around that pick. So
I reckon Farrow could get there.
Absolutely he could. But McVie looks pretty good as a prospect. Like if you're picking up a young player from another club, you couldn't get too much better for the age and how many games he's played than Judd McVie. Like you said, Jordan Clark has turned into a star. Yeah. Coming through, he's had that development. So it kind of just depends, I think, like how you play him. It'll be interesting from Judd McVie's perspective, if this is a talking point at all. But like, do you think he plays more of an offensive role as a defensive runner, or do you think he's going to be locked down more similar to how he had been played at Melbourne?
I think he has to be that offensive threat. We need to release the shackles from this back six, and he's spoken about as a really good ball mover. So I hope that's what we bring him in for, because that's what we lack. We don't need any more lockdown. We've got Brandon Walker in the wings who can play that role as well. We do have a lot of untried players that got drafted last year as well. Like we played Dudley and Reed, but Charlie Nichols and Ollie Murphy from the draft before that as well. So we still do have some. Aiden Riddle is another one. So
do you think in the draft with the picks that you have now, do you think you'll look to go for best available talent with where you are? We
always do that. Well, that's what our list boss said. We try to sort of trade in to improve areas of need and then take the best available, which is why last year when we took Murphy Reid, I was like, why are we picking up a midfielder? We do not need that. He was best available.
Just a slider.
And then it worked out very well. So, I don't think we really need to touch much more on
Toby
Freo.
One would be another player you can expect.
Yeah, he'll come
Fremantle.
in. Been linked to Fred Rodriguez as well. But yeah, we'll see. We usually pull out just some rogue player that I've never heard of from SA or...
Charlie Nichols was a little bit rogue.
Yeah.
I can't remember what he went at. Was that like 40?
Yeah, something like that. I liked Charlie Nichols.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
They rate him highly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose there were still players on the board at that point that you would have expected to go ahead of him.
Yeah.
Is all I would say. But
He'll push Jai Amos for a game next year.
you reckon?
By the sounds
How
of
is
it,
his VFL? His waffle form?
I haven't watched too much Peel, but there's very high raps on him. They sort of expected him to come back in the back end of the year, but obviously we had really important games to play, and debuting him at that part of the year would have been a bit dicey. So I hope to see him, play more footy this year and push Jai Amos for that third key spot.
Sure. A lot of good athletic traits. Should we move on to the Geelong Cats? Incoming, James Warple and pick 99. Outgoing, Pat Retchko, who has turned into a meme, I think, at this point, you would say.
He's turned into a superstar since he's been traded. Everyone's so hot on him.
Yeah, I actually can't wait to talk about him in the Richmond part. Their draft selections are 19, 40, 60, and I'm not going to read out the rest because they're all too high numbers for me to read.
You can only count up to 65.
And I feel like just to kick things off here and to talk about something with Geelong, it's obviously a fairly boring window. They bring in Warple, which is a bit of a need, but maybe the first time in a while that Geelong have missed out on all their targets. Charlie Kerner didn't come through the door. It's a capital reason. And Rowan Marshall, they couldn't get done either. I feel like usually Geelong get their business done.
Do you reckon that, look, the Kerner one's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Like Carlton would never have traded him for 3 picks in the 20s or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But, maybe the St Kilda and Marshall thing, sure, on the one hand, St Kilda probably want to keep Rowan Marshall, but and he's contracted. But do you think there's a little sense that everyone's a little bit... Well, they have in their minds what happened with Bailey Smith last year, where he basically one of the better players in the comp has walked to them for pick 17 and a packet of twisties. And there's probably a little bit of a sense that maybe that's working against Geelong now that they have this reputation of just sort of getting the outcomes that they want.
Yeah, you thought that they strolled in thinking, we'll get all the deals done regardless.
Do you think there's like a collective of AFL clubs that are going, we can't just let them get whatever they want?
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if that was, St Kilda's reasoning. It certainly probably wasn't Carlton's. Or maybe it was a little factor, but maybe in the Zach Merritt situation, I think Essendon and Hawthorn in particular, with those two clubs dealing was an element. And I wonder with the Cats here now, going forward, because they probably put up a deal of 19 and a future second for Rowan Marshall. Had that come a little bit earlier, that would have been 19 and Leah for Rowan Marshall. But obviously it came so late in the piece that Kilda couldn't do with it. Maybe they just didn't want to accept that deal. But I do wonder if there's going to be an ongoing thing for the Cats where now clubs are going to be wary of dealing with them.
Essentially, you're saying, though, like it's a principle thing more
Possibly.
so than we think that was the right value or whatever. You just didn't want to
Possibly.
give it to Geelong.
Yeah.
I do have a bit of a theory in that space that clubs... I feel, and this is completely subjective and just what I've sort of seen take place, but clubs down the bottom of the ladder don't mind giving clubs up the top of the ladder better value than other clubs around them and vice versa. So there's like, you see yourself in a group of teams that you're competitive with and you think that you'll rise the ladder with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, true. So I guess with St Kilda,
But they see themselves climbing.
They do,
given what they've done.
Yeah, and I am like, I don't really know if that was St Kilda's reasoning. They probably just did want to keep Rowan Marshall, if that's fair enough. But yeah, St Kilda also would be seeing themselves as a team that wants to mix it with Geelong next season. So
They've got a good record against Geelong, the Saints as well.
Yeah, like 4 in a row, I think.
Yeah,
or is
it's
either 4 in a row or 4 in a row at Marvel, or all of them were at Marvel. I don't know.
They brought in James Warple. How much of a difference do you think he makes to that Cats midfield?
Well, with Pat Retchko going out, no different. No, it's a pretty nice little pickup without being. I don't think it's like moving any major needles, but they're definitely a team that does struggle a little bit to get their hands on the ball. Like Smith and Holmes are their main two strike guys in there, but they're more runners and they help more in transition than they actually do from a stoppage perspective. So I think it'll be good for them. They've obviously already got Atkins in there who does that pretty well, but it's just another option to go through, albeit he's not Patrick Cripps or Caleb Sarong.
Yeah. No, it's just a bit of a depth piece there and just like consolidates the midfield without really moving the needle as much as, say, Bailey Smith was 12 months ago. That doesn't mean that it won't be a good addition for them, and they actually hold pick 19 and will probably unearth the next Patrick Dangerfield with that pick.
I'm so sick of Geelong, man. I'm actually just so sick of them being good. They need to get a tough draw next year. This year their draw in the back end was such a piss take. Finished off with like Essendon, Richmond, North, down at the Cattery. We need to make it harder for these guys.
Paint me a picture. How do you see the fall start to happen? What are the pieces?
I just had a dark thought.
Oh, God.
Say that.
You had a bad thought, did you say?
Yeah, I won't say that. Plane crash. No.
I think a necessary component would be Brad Scott.
Yeah.
Chris Scott, rather. Chris Scott not being the coach, and then the replacement not being a, sufficient replacement, and then over time they stop becoming this destination club. That's the way it'll happen.
The first thing that came into my head there was Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp leaves and Arnie Slot comes in and wins the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they did with their last coaching transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think had there been somebody in between, like Slot and Klopp, who was probably like mediocre, and then, missed Champions League over and over again, Liverpool would revert back to the Brendan Rodgers quality, So that's possibly true of Geelong. But
I don't necessarily agree with what I'm going to say here, but is there anything in the Bailey Smith, Tyson Stengel, they've had their off-field issues and Geelong handle those situations really well and seem to keep them out of the public sector. Is there anything that maybe that's bubbling away and it gets a little bit worse and then they can't contain it? Or are they just
I think
too
we're
good?
reaching here.
Yeah, we are.
We're trying to find a way to drag Geelong
I'm
now.
just throwing, I don't know.
The culture is as strong there as it is anywhere. However, they have lost a plethora of their assistant coaches. They've brought in Nathan Buckley, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what you said. It was scary.
Scarlett.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good get, but Scarlett goes out. King goes out. You do notice a big difference when like a midfield coach leaves, I think. Sam Mitchell, was he the midfield coach at West Coast when he won the flag?
Yeah.
Freo lost.
True.
God, who did we lose? I think it was not Joel Corey. Matthew Boyd to Collingwood.
Brett Kirk?
Yeah, we lost him. But this last year, our midfield went to shit and we lost Boyd to Collingwood.
That's something that's not really spoken about enough, I feel.
No.
Because probably people just don't know exactly what they do. So what are they actually bringing? What are they losing when those guys go out?
Assistant coaches have as much of an impact on a player than as equal as a head coach does, I feel. They work with them more closely at training. The head coach is, at the end of the day, like the head shot caller. But they have a big impact, the assistants. You can see it when, they're talking to them at halftime, throughout like the pre-game, whatever. They are giving direction. So, losing a midfield coach, I know they bring Nathan Buckley in, but it does have an impact on how your midfield will operate.
The Cats are copping a lot of hate in the chat, as would be expected. Jesse's going to go for a little bit of a tinkle. So I might, before we get into the Gold Coast Suns, who everybody's waiting for, obviously. Nathan Buckley isn't that good, says Billy75 Chook. Druzy.
No, you're wrong. You're just wrong. That's the wrong opinion.
Okay, fair enough. He will, most likely he's going to be the coach of Tasmania in a few years.
Yeah.
That's at Void Generation. They're having a conversation. I won't go into that one. I feel like Bailey Smith, this is Glizzy Hands, I feel like Bailey Smith at Geelong will end badly. Just might take some time. Yeah, it's one of those ones, isn't it, where you could
prey on a man's downfall.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could see that going badly, and obviously they've had a few. I feel like the Bailey Smith thing, though, if you're going to make one comment about it, it did sort of like spiral a little bit towards the end of the season. It seemed to get worse and worse as the season went on, and they were struggling a little bit more to handle him by the end.
Yeah.
Everything at the beginning of the season was just clean and nice, and the media was sort of getting around him, and it kind of turned back end.
Yeah. There was a comment from Up the Guts. People are brainwashed. Brisbane is about to play 6 grand finals in a row while people complain about Geelong. Geelong have been doing it whilst the Lions rebuilt. And I think he makes a good point there on us
being distracted a little bit. I think that is actually fair because Geelong
Yeah.
have been consistently good, but they haven't won. What have they won? One grand final.
Yeah.
So they're a one-time premiership team under
Yeah.
this sort of current model. You wouldn't go back to that other one. I
I'm
think
just sick of them being there anyway.
you're sick of them just
I
being.
just want them to be shit for a bit, Geelong.
Yeah. It feels like there is, but I suppose fair play to how they've run things. They've definitely done some things outside the rules, like no doubt.
Buckley didn't win a premiership, also only made one premiership grand final.
Can I
as
just go
coach.
back to that
Yeah, go on.
Brisbane thing though? I think this genuinely, we are kind of head in the sand a little bit about what's happening with the Queensland clubs because
Oh,
the Gold
yeah.
Coast and Brisbane are going to dominate.
Yeah, no, we're seeing it. Maybe the broader AFL community is head in the sand, but the Lions are going to go for the three-peat.
As
Gold
Jesse
Coast will play a
said
prelim.
a few weeks ago, Brisbane were 4 points off a three-peat,
Yeah.
as it's turned out, and they don't look like they're going to slow down. The Gold Coast will be right there with them. We could have the first Q Clash grand final in the coming years.
Yeah. Oh, don't leave Freo out of that conversation as well.
You said like 2 weeks ago Freo were going to slide.
Yeah.
No.
They're missing finals.
Yeah, the further you get into the off-season, the more optimistic
That was an
we all
inside
get.
thought.
Yeah.
No. All right, let's
That
move
you
on.
said out loud.
Move on.
Let's move on
Actually,
to the.
wait. Just wait. I'm just going to go to the bathroom.
I also need a wee, but
Let's
that's
get it
all
all out
right.
of the way now.
Yeah.
So we can just.
Somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me.
Kern now, you're an all-star. I would have loved Buckley to join us at Essendon for a year. If you have Brad Scott with Hinkley as a senior assistant. Wait, is Hinkley at Essendon?
Is that a thing?
And Buckley is an assistant.
Oh, I think
That's
he's
a lot
just
of-
saying, let's bring in all the
Yeah.
coaches that aren't coaches anymore.
Yeah, well, Hinkley did a really good job with Port Adelaide when he first started there. He took them to relevance very quickly.
When Gold Coast beat Freo, everyone was celebrating. I wasn't, because the underdogs won. Will be a very different vibe in a few years.
Agreed. It's going to stop being cute as early as next season. I think we're already almost like prematurely bracing now for the Gold Coast Suns because of their finals performance. And had they beaten Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, a game they should have won late in the season, they would have finished in the top four from memory. So they're not far off the pace already. Only after a few beers, to be honest. With Dimmer in charge, it is already not cute. Yeah, fair.
What do we got? Real Bros P together.
We're talking about cross stream. Yeah, there's a different kind of live stream that happens. Yeah. Thank you all for being here, guys. We got 231 in the chat. 246 rather. So chuck a like on the stream would be much appreciated. I know we do ask for these things. Oh, got some buffering according to Birdman.
Oh no,
I don't know what to believe anymore, frankly.
it's difficult. Just refuse to get out of my
Flight of fright stage. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm sort of calm now. Don't give me anxiety.
Yeah.
Dill did piss on the router. It's
Oh.
buffering again.
Okay.
Maybe
Couple of.
it is in the bathroom. It's
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
Stream unsynced and buffering.
Unsynced, eh?
What does that mean?
Audio? Like our lip syncs? I'm just loading it up on my computer
Let's
here.
have a look.
Bear with us.
Unsynced and buffering.
Looks okay. Refresh worked for time being. It says
Yeah.
Bengaman.
If we can just get through this today,
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
that would be good, and then I can make some troubleshooting.
Yeah. Well, we may not be continuing the live shows every weekend until the draft. We haven't really figured that out. We will be next week, and we will be doing a mock draft.
Mark. Stream is
Did
fine.
you say Mark?
Thank you. Still fine.
All right.
These are the things that I want to hear.
It's looking good on my laptop for what it's worth.
Nice.
What was the issue?
And I just had some buffering, and some people are saying yes, some people are saying no.
Woody saying I was having some issues. I hope that is
Was it just because I wasn't here?
Yeah.
could have been.
Good call.
All right, Gold Coast Suns, man, scary prospect up on the Gold Coast right now. They bring in Jamari Ugle-Hagan, who has a lot of talent. Can he put it together on the football field? Let's see. Christian Petrarca, a massive star added to their ranks. They lose Ben Ainsworth, Connor Butterick, Braden Fiorini, Sam Flanders, and Malcolm Roses Jr. So players with a lot of potential, but weren't sort of getting the money or the game time at Gold Coast with the squeeze, with these stars coming in and the plethora of high-end talent. Gold Coast are scary, boys.
I wonder if there has been a player with more trade-linked articles on him in the competition than Braden Fiorini. Because I reckon it's like 4 or 5.
Of all of the things that the Gold Coast Suns did, that's where you start.
I reckon like if it was a way to find like filter through all of like Google and find every article about a trade involving Braden Fiorini, I reckon you go past the last 5 like trade periods, and then eventually it's happened. And then I'm half convinced he's going to play at a third club
What
in
is it about?
2027.
I thought he went to Essendon.
He did, yeah, he did. But I just
you
mean like
again,
it's going to continue.
It's going to continue. What is it about Braden Fiorini that makes him such a like memeable player in the AFL? Like he's a guy that's always flirting on the edge of best 22 or not.
Yeah.
But he just seems to be a factor at the same time. Like his name outweighs his actual performance.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with him is he's just dominated the VFL as well. Like, you know, he's just such a high volume player that he's just constantly like that depth player for the Gold Coast Suns. And I guess it got to a point where now they really didn't need him. Whereas before there was, I guess, always an argument for keeping him and possibly relatively well paid to, given Gold Coast kind of inflated their contracts there for a little while. But
Lower class Brum says Fiorini is a fantasy guy. That's why. I think that is actually a bit part of
that's
it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the high volume stuff. So what do we think about, I think, getting into some of the bigger moves that they did? What can Christian Petrarca and Jamara Ugle-Hagan do for this team?
You spoke about it the other day about Christian Petrarca's player rating. Like, I've never actually looked into that metric particularly, but it really hasn't dropped off as much as people think. A lot of people have put a line through Christian Petrarca as a player. He's still an explosive inside mid that can go forward and make an impact. And what an addition it is to that young team. You know, Anderson, Rao, Miller's been there for a while. But Bailey Humphrey, he's been there and done it. He's reached the pinnacle of football and he's now joined a system that is trying to get there. So that experience as well as the on-field ability is
I think if you
home
combine
run.
that too with Petrarca compared to, say, like a lot of clubs have done that in the past, like North in the last couple of years have gone after Luke Parker and Caleb Daniel and Jack Darling, guys who've won a flag, but they've actually brought in a guy who's done it and is still roughly in the prime of his career.
Yeah.
I think to explain the player rating for Christian Petrarca this season, I think he probably started a little bit slowly back off the injury, but he also missed a lot of opportunities this year, which so did Melbourne as a whole. So I think a lot of that you can actually put down to system a bit. They seem to generate more difficult chances than the opposition and miss a lot of easier chances as well, just how they play. They go deep into the pockets and those sorts of things. So I think in that Gold Coast team and how they play, he'll have a lot more opportunity and he won't be so much of the focal point as well.
Yeah, he had a pretty solid season in a really struggling system where the coach got sacked. And then they bring in Jamara Ugle-Hagan, who has shown great ability. Probably hasn't put it together as much as he would have liked, but he'll get a fresh start up on the Gold Coast and could really make waves up there as well. And they're obviously going to bring in some high-end talent as well. So,
is there a single other premiership player in their best 22 at the moment?
a premiership player,
Yeah, Gold Coast.
Dan Rioli.
Yes, thank you.
Good one.
All right, yeah, I knew that I was likely forgetting someone, but still, obviously not many.
Noble famously missed.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So not him, but yeah, no, that's a good shout.
Yeah.
So they're clearly going for that. And again, Rioli's another one where still in the prime of his career,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
similar
Yeah.
to Petrarca. So they're not just going for pure leadership, they're going for on-field performance as well.
Just another player you have to be concerned about at the Gold Coast Suns now. Like, genuinely. Like, Rao does his thing and Anderson is the player you probably want to shut down in that midfield. Tuke Miller, obviously another player that you've got to maybe not like consider. He's so good, but he's not someone you really send someone to. But Petrarca definitely is. And he can turn a game.
I don't think you can send a player to Tuke Miller. I feel like he's
That's
one of
what I
those
mean, yeah.
untaggable players.
Like Rao as well, I would say, is in the same boat.
Well,
Yeah.
that's in the past. The Gold Coast Suns have had the problem of being unbalanced, in my opinion. It's been too much quality. Well, you can never have too much quality in the midfield, but compared to everything else. So they've
Sure.
invested too heavily in the midfield. Now it's starting to get this nice spread.
Yeah.
Where they've brought in Rioli and Noble, so their halfbacks are good. They brought in Collins, who has gone to another level.
Yeah.
It's just
he's
a
been there
really
for a while now, but yeah, I get your point.
It's sort of like system under Hardwick's come into the fore. They've got
Yeah.
a more balanced team. Everybody's coming into that perfect age profile, and it's just gonna click.
It's literally on them. They have every single piece that they need now. Bailey Humphrey zipping around that forward line. I saw it firsthand in Perth, how much of a threat he is in front of goal. So, yeah, maybe he doesn't get as much midfield time, but he can make as much of an impact in that half forward.
They've got so much flexibility now with Petrarca, though, because they can just move those two around to make impact whenever one's hot. They can just put them in. People saying Humphrey is going to be gone, but, wait and see on that when Gold Coast win a premiership and then see if he wants to leave.
Yeah, that's true.
Is what I'd say about that. And I think he's
At
a
that
little
point,
bit
who
similar to like
cares?
Cozzy Pickett and Nasaya, where it's like we'll see what the club does in 2 years.
Yeah.
Or whenever his contract runs
Yeah,
out.
they're gonna be aware of how strong the come home factor was, and they're gonna do absolutely everything they can to keep him there. Also on the Suns, I think people in the broader football world don't appreciate how good that back six actually is with Collins, Andrews. Who's the guy that's missed a lot of footy? Centre half back.
Ballard.
Ballard.
He's a good
Ballard, he missed the
player.
entire season. He's
Yeah.
a gun.
Yeah,
He's
true.
an absolute
Bodie
gun.
Hewland. Does not get spoken about enough.
Powell. He's
Yeah.
underrated.
Powell, Rioli, and Noble.
Yeah, I've mainly seen him play as a midfield, but he doesn't look out of place as well. So
Will-
play up the ground at times.
He probably
but
maybe he has, but recently he has been pretty much a running defender. But he could be the best of those three, like
Yeah.
Noble, Rioli, and him. He's probably
point
the most
being,
talented.
they are ridiculously strong in defence with Mac Andrew and the guys I just mentioned. So, yeah,
I
scary
reckon-
prospect.
We could also see some movement around next year around guys in particular like Jed Walter. Like if Jamari Ugle-Hagan comes out to be the best case scenario, I think you can watch. That's a
and
watch this
King.
space, absolutely, and Ben King obviously with a big one. So actually, those two are probably connected. Ben King goes, Jed Walter might not, but and vice versa. But I
There's
just wanted
a
to see
question in the
that.
chat from Lewis.
I just saw that.
Can we have a poll put up? Who will win a flag first, Freo, Suns, or GWS?
Can you do that for us, producer Vic? Lovely.
We're gonna get that. in the
Lovely. We've got
chat.
258 on the chat.
Like
My
282
only
on that.
potential criticism of this, and it's one of those ambiguous, subjective ones, but just the Jamara Ugle-Hagan situation, I was probably a little bit critical just in the sense of like, do they need to do this and take on the risk because of how good their list is? You love it though, Drews.
It's a free hit.
Yeah, I actually think it's less risky when you're culturally sound, and I feel like the Gold Coast Suns are finally there. And I actually think it's to the point where he may not actually disrupt them that much compared to maybe pre-Hardwick. If he'd gone there, when it was Stewie Jew and they were still trying to find their feet as a club, really, then I think it would be more of a threat. I actually think they're in a stronger position than ever to take on a Jamara and cope with the potential distractions.
That's a fair point. That is a very fair point. And they didn't pay much for him on either draft capital or salary.
That's right.
So you've twisted my arm a little bit there, I would say.
Any threat of them failing to match bids for Dylan Patterson, I think Ezekiel Euland is safe. And I think as it currently sits, picks 3 and 4 will be matchable as it currently stands. But West Coast obviously have picks 1 and 2 and failed to get a deal done for Gold Coast pick 8. And I do wonder if they could make things a little bit awkward for the Gold Coast Suns.
They could make it awkward, but as you said, they can go into a deficit.
Yes.
I think it would be very unlikely that they didn't match. I reckon it's unlikely that they'll take any of the guys past Patterson.
Yes.
But Euland and Patterson for me would be pieces that they just wouldn't let slide.
Yeah.
So I think it's unlikely. Do you think, from a West Coast point of view, there is any likelihood that you would want to do that to them to push them?
It's not really in our nature to be so openly antagonistic, but at the end of the day, it is a competition. And if West Coast want, say, Dylan Patterson, they'd need to bid on both at 1 and 2 to make it really difficult for the Gold Coast Suns. And at least from a talent point of view, there's no risk of I don't think West Coast are unhappy if they end up accidentally with one of those players.
Yep.
But will that affect trade relationships in the future? I think that's something West Coast would be wary on. So I'm just curious what plays out here. I'm not necessarily going to predict one thing or the other.
The poll is up 77%. Think the Suns, 21%, including myself. Think Freo, and then 3% for the Giants.
I would agree with that order.
We'll see how that goes in some time. See
Yeah,
if it
well, you
changes.
can't argue when they literally kicked us out of finals this year. I think it's pretty fair to say that.
Yeah.
They're probably-
Who's got better talent
Oh,
of those 3 teams?
I think now it's the Suns.
yeah. Yeah.
Before that, I would have had to have thought about it, but with Petrarca in, and if you consider the raw talent of Jamara, then I think that swings it pretty clearly a Gold Coast way.
Yeah, I think so as well.
But as teams, there was nothing really, not much splitting them this year. Like they played each other once, both away teams won a close game. Like it was pretty level.
Yeah.
Lower Class Brum says Frio's list is more impressive than the Suns. That's questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
The
debatable.
midfield is probably, you'd probably, it's really tough to compare our midfields when you go Sarong, Young, Brayshaw, Anderson, Rao. Oh, you got Petrarca.
I like comparing
They've
their
got more
midfields.
depth, their midfield, for sure.
They're also going to add Ewell and Patterson.
Yeah.
You know, if it was the other way around and Fremantle were adding the top 2 or 2 of the top 4 maybe, then maybe that would swing it the other way as well. But if we're just talking raw talent, Gold Coast.
I do like comparing though their like just their starting midfields because they're both young and they do have like similar. You could go Sarong for Rao, Anderson for Brayshaw, or maybe you'd actually go Brayshaw for Miller.
Am I crazy to say that I'd take our forward line ahead of theirs? I don't think so.
The entire
I'd take
line?
Voss and Tracy ahead of like King and Walter right now.
Yeah, Voss
and Reed.
Voss.
They're just so consistent.
Tracy's one there for me. He's number one.
Voss had as good a season as Tracy did, I reckon.
Yeah, he did. Does that mean, but like, you know what I mean? There are some players that you would, like he was a rookie delisted from Essendon.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more growth in like Reed, Walter.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah, we're talking top 10 picks there. Jed Walter picked 3.
But very close as displayed by our 2 games we had this year. We beat them by a single figure margin up at the Gold Coast and then they beat us in the last minute of the final. But there you go. Just an expansion club chat.
Had a super chat here from Lewis. Says, imagine West Coast use pick 1 for Patterson and then pick 2 for Ewland. I think if West Coast wanted Patterson, they'd have to bid on him second.
They wanted Patterson, they have to bid. Yeah, but I reckon he's coming at it more from the perspective of you don't want them, you just want them to match, right? So he's going Patterson first because it's actually making them.
It makes it harder for Ewland.
I guess it's making them question whether they actually take Patterson because like it's saying is that the line where it's over to take him because it's assuming they rate Ewland better.
Yeah.
So you're testing them with Patterson.
Yeah, and then West Coast have the second pick, so could then go Dersma. So it doesn't really matter if Patterson's the first pick.
Yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic.
It feels a little bit too mentalist though, doesn't it? Like we're kind of, I don't know, like it's too...
It'd be a bold move from West Coast. I would like it though, to be honest.
It would be fun.
Yeah, I would support it.
I wish like the recruiting and list management was a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Neil.
No, you go. I was about to do the same.
Easy. GWS is the next team. They bring in Clayton Oliver. They lose Jacob Ware. They only lost Clary for a 3rd round selection. They hold picks 12, 35 and some irrelevant picks in the draft. I think they add midfield depth. Haven't really seen too much of Jacob Ware. Again, a bit of a free hit with Clayton Oliver, although they will be paying a fat chunk of money with his contract. They keep Lee Kalia, who provides that defensive depth, even though he clearly wanted to leave. What do we make of the Giants' sort of trade period and where they are at?
They really do operate down different lines to other clubs. They're not really a club that attracts big fish. They're more likely to, we've seen their drafting as well. They do things a little bit differently. So I'm not really surprised they didn't target some of the biggest names in the comp. They generally get players that are just sort of like not right for their current clubs, if that makes sense. If you look at the Stringer and Laverde models as well, examples rather.
That's relatively a recent thing though.
Yeah.
Hogan. Yeah.
Hogan's a good example too.
Yeah, true.
So they kind of like...
Geelong do that a bit.
Yeah. So
Stengel, Martin.
Yeah, true.
Smith.
Yeah, and they've had some moderate success with that. I do think as a list, the Giants have a little bit of a separation between their oldest players and then the next group of players who are the most talented, and that's kind of like your Callahans and your Darcy Joneses and perhaps... Aaron Cadman, you throw into that mix. Phoenix Goddard, they spent a high pick on.
Even Hannaford and Oliver.
And then
Harrison
you've got
Oliver.
that first wave of Giants.
That's right. I mean, they just lost Callum Ward, but then they've still got Cornelio, they've still got Josh Kelly as well. So for me, I think it's going to be about facilitating that transition and I think the next group that wins the premiership, well, for the first group rather, that wins the premiership for the Giants will be that Callahan group rather. So Oliver kind of smooths that over a little bit because he's younger than the other players we mentioned. But also I just think from a competing in 2026 point of view, they needed some midfield depth. And they never really replaced Taranto or Hopper directly.
No. The thing with the Giants that those other northern clubs seem to do better, and this is probably geographical for them in the part of Sydney, not that I know much about Sydney geography, but they don't have the academy capital coming through like Gold Coast, like Brisbane, like Sydney. I don't know if they've got any academy players that have turned into stars in their team.
Ralston was a recent one.
Okay.
There was also Matt Kennedy and Will Setterfield.
saw
Going
that.
back a little bit further. I am struggling to really remember.
They probably
to
have the
highlight
worst
ones.
retention of all the northern teams as well. Gold Coast have copped it a bit, but
Obviously, crowds play into that.
yeah, they would be the smallest club in the AFL.
Yeah, and then the area of Sydney that they're based in, like the Swans, just feels like a bit more of a sexier brand, don't
Yeah,
they? Like
well,
more
they're
metropolitan.
More
Yeah.
established, more higher market, I suppose. People were talking about GWS as flag favourites. Flag favourites at the start of the year. If you go through the 7 AFL post, pretty much everyone had GWS.
It's terrible.
Oh, God.
That's so good.
They're falling off a cliff, the Giants.
I think you handled that perfectly.
Did you say they're falling off a cliff?
Yeah. Well, no.
Really?
At the start of the year, they had very high expectations to play in a grand final. And
Yeah.
they completely missed it. They have been a very frustrating side to pick where they're going to finish. Now it's sort of like 12 months on, oh, yeah, GWS, they're whatever. They had a quiet trade period, yada, yada, yada. Sort of get swept under the table that they went out in straight sets a couple years ago in finals. They've had another first round exit this year. Where are they at?
It is a good question because I big spad for there. Oh, I'm having a tough day with my throat here.
I've been there.
That wasn't that wasn't a euphemism either. Okay,
Something to do with favourites.
I was big on them this season. What I felt throughout the season is they just had like zero continuity with their top end players. Like they never had Taylor and Buckley together, it felt like. And then Callahan got injured for a time. Briggs was injured for a time. Hogan was injured. So it was kind of like they just never had everything together. And probably then if you try to investigate that a little bit more deeply, it's like, well, okay, then they mustn't have the depth. The players that are coming in, as you said, Jesse, it's like they're either at one end of the scale where they're too old or they're too young. So they haven't got everybody kind of coming in. It's really about what they've done. Their whole identity, I feel, is based around sort of aggressive recruiting through the draft, particularly. Like they've gone after different types of players. They've gone after those small forwards to try to play like a different style, like brand of football. And probably the jury's still out, isn't it? Based on their finishing positions in the last few years.
Yeah, totally. I don't think we should ignore as well not for the first time, they've lost a whole chunk of their depth in one hit. And that we've seen Fremantle's a recent example, but teams, and GWS are another example in a previous time where you lose 5 or 6 of these players who may not be like all absolute A-graders, but it does have an impact. And we talked about Peatling, Cumming and Perryman, 3 important players for them. I suppose Cumming had missed some footy, but they're still a talented player. And I think we could see that partly explains why maybe at their best, they were at their damaging best, but defensively, like when other teams got on top, they also went a little bit limp, to be honest, for lack of a better word there.
Good one.
Yeah, they're very flaccid in the back half. God. What was the next thing I was going to
This
say?
is the most disjointed chat about the Giants ever.
Yeah, it is. I would just go back to the fact that they're probably going to need to continue to consolidate that younger, passionate part of that list. I don't think I see a premiership coming for the Giants in the next handful of years. I think it's going to be more like a 4 or 5 year build from here, but they do have a pretty good start on that.
If they had a clean injury run in 2026, let's forecast a little bit here. Canelio comes back and starts playing. I know he's on he'd probably only be 30, 31 though, wouldn't he?
He's the same age as me. Almost to the day, I reckon.
32?
Yeah, he's like a week younger than me.
So he's not
2 weeks younger than me.
old. He's had problems with his body, but say Canelio had a really strong season, Kelly had a really strong season as sort of role players, which kind of ups the depth. And then some of those younger players like Gothard becomes a regular part of the team. Hannaford gets in the team and they have a bit of growth. Callahan's sort of already a star, and then they bring Clayton Oliver in to play a role in the midfield. Is there any chance that they could fight for a premiership in 26?
No.
I don't think a premiership.
Really?
I think the gap between their best and worst was just too alarming for me this year. And
I don't rate
I
their
suppose
depth.
clear injury run is a big factor because then suddenly your depth doesn't really matter as much, right? But no, I don't know if their midfield will pack enough of a punch. Like it'll centre around Callahan, but they probably need like a Ralston to become, more closer to the fully evolved version than what he currently is.
James Leake, maybe?
Yeah, again, running defender.
He's a mid, isn't he, Leake?
Drafted as a defender, I reckon.
Okay.
I don't know what's happened to him since he's been drafted. I think he debuted, didn't he? I think Joe Fonte's a good player as well, by the way.
I rate Joe Fonte.
Who else have they picked up in recent times? It was Hannaford and Harrison Oliver last year.
That was last year. That was the two top guys that they picked up.
Yeah. So it probably is. I think for me, it probably comes from the midfield. We know that Cadman and Hogan are really good forward threats, and we know their small brigade is outstanding. We know their back six is outstanding. For me, it's around the midfield. So Oliver, he'd have to really return to some of his best form to make them a premiership contender, in my opinion. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know. When you look at the top end quality though, it's so strong. Like imagine having a team with Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley behind the ball, Lockie Whitfield, Lockie Ash running the ball out of defence. There's actually other good players, but I'm just mentioning the main ones. Your midfield's around Tom Green and Finn Callaghan, and then your forward line has Jesse Hogan and Aaron Cadman, who's the number 1 pick.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good starting point.
Absolutely, yeah. It's my concern is not from a talent point of view. It's probably a little bit of a balance point of view, and just the fact that I don't see it happening over the next couple of years. Maybe 4 or 5 was probably a little bit too far into the future. They could probably win one or get close to winning one sooner than that. But for me, I don't think I'm realistically seeing them in the top 5 or 6 teams of contenders next year.
Mel Tompkins makes a good point there. The argument is simple. Can they be better than Brisbane, Geelong, Adelaide or Collingwood?
Freo.
The answer is no. I mean, I think that I'm not ready to write them off. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And think they did compete at times with those teams when they were fully fit. Let's go to Hawthorn, who incoming, they got pick 10, pick 22 and Sydney's 3rd rounder. Their outgoings were Jath, Sarong, Warple, pick 9, pick 31, 2026 round 4 pick. So they simultaneously dropped down the draft order and lost 3 players. Is this the worst trade period of all time?
Nah.
It was a fail
West
for
Coast in
Hawthorn.
07 would be up there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was being facetious,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Failed to get Harley Reid. Not that that was going to happen. Butters.
I think it was somewhat close.
Don't know if
but-
they threw the hat in the ring for him. And Zach Merritt. They failed on all of their targets.
Did you
and
say Oscar Allen?
Oh, and Oscar Allen as well.
Well, at least met with him. I don't know how serious they were about it.
Oh,
but
they were obviously keen on him.
Yeah.
And then, CJ, Sarong, they're fringe players. So they've lost depth. They haven't got any of their targets in. They're just saying, we're going to get Will Day back next year, so who cares who we bring in anyway? They're pretty well placed. So
Yeah.
a bit of a shit trade period though.
One of the talking points out of the trade period was the Hustwaite move and him having to go back to Hawthorn now. And apparently he's a little bit unpleased with the situation of being put up for trade, a bit flat. That's probably a factor in all this. The one thing I did want to explore with them is, given the targets that they are, like with obviously Merritt and not having enough capital to get that deal done, can you go back to the Barras deal last year and say they gave up potentially too much for him? They traded away their future 1st, 2nd and 3rd round picks in that deal.
Those became like 15, 33 and 51. It's for absolute clarity there.
Yeah.
Maybe. But there's no way you get that deal without pick 15 being
I just
part
mean
of
they
it.
could have, if they had have held on to their future first, they could have leveraged that to get up the board, which would have got Essendon more excited, I would have thought, about the Merritt deal.
You are right, but that would essentially rule them out of a Barras trade.
Yeah, but what
they have to forego on Barras altogether.
I suppose what I'm saying is, if you look at the team 12 months on, and I'm being revisionist, I understand that, but would they have been stocked enough in the defensive half? I almost feel like they have a little bit, like the few too many tall defenders.
No, I disagree.
Barras is a different type, so it's probably fair, but it's just something to consider. Like, who would you rather in that team right now? If you could remove Barras and put Merritt in, maybe there would have been a deal that could have been done.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
Same age too, I think.
their back six is really balanced now. It took a while for Sicily to find his role this year with the shuffling back six, but Josh Battle was all-Australian and Tom Barras is as solid of a fullback as you're going to get. So
I do think, though, if you look at those guys, like Battle had a really good season. Sicily had a pretty poor season overall. He played some decent footy late, but it's like that always happens in teams when you bring new guys in. There's like a diminishing returns on everybody's form. So somebody had to take a hit, and then you've got Weddle there. I'm even missing a few. Scrimshaw's the other one that plays regularly as well. They've got a lot of tolls back there. To the point that they got rid of Jai Sarong.
This is true. All of those players, though, outside of Barras and Battle are undersized, including Sicily. I mean, that's not really a problem for Sicily's game. He's obviously an All-Australian, but all of those players have that in common. I don't think Scrimshaw ever really takes an opposition power forward. You know what I mean? He's more of that intercepting rebound player. And then Sarong, again, I've barely seen the guy play, but maybe one VFL game, but he's also 192 centimetres, so that probably is the difference, I would say.
Pretty much Frost is the replacement. Frost would have been playing the Barras role.
Yeah, that's right.
And he did play some decent footy in 2024, but he's gone now. He's retired, hasn't he?
He's definitely worse than Barras.
He was delisted.
I don't even necessarily agree with what I'm saying there. I'm just kind of bringing it up as a talking point.
Yeah.
12 months on, which one's more important to Hawthorn? I think you could make the argument that you'd prefer Merritt over their next best mid-in compared to the maybe Barras versus Frost one.
That's a fair point to make, yeah.
All right, Melbourne. They had one of the better trade periods of any club, I thought. They do lose a plethora of players, 3 premiership players in Oliver, Petrarca and Spargo, Bubble. Chad McVie, a young, promising prospect that they've developed, has left to join the Dockers. But they brought in Max Heath, Chankuth Giath, Brody Myercheck, and probably the biggest of them all, Jack Steele, who St Kilda fans are still pretty cut that the captain left the club. The biggest part of their off-season was the first-round picks that they brought in. What did they get in?
7, 8 and a future first while giving up a future second back to the Suns.
Numbers.
I would love to hear you delineate the difference between your assessment on Carlton and Melbourne, because I think there are a lot of parallels between these two off-seasons. A whole lot of less than valuable prospects coming in, let's say. Oh, maybe that's a bit unfair, but like Myercheck, I think. But Heath and Giath are long shots and steals at the end of his career.
I get what you're saying, though. It's a really strong period, but they haven't helped their 2026.
Yeah, that's right. So Petrarca goes out the door in the same way that Kerno goes out the door, and it's a draft-focused one whilst rearranging their depth.
My argument is probably that Melbourne won a flag and the Blues didn't. So
how do you base it on rating their trade period, though?
I feel that the D's have started their rebuild whilst somewhat trying to compete in the last few years. They've brought in Langford, Lindsay, Windsor. Help me here. Who else have they brought in?
Tholstrup.
And there's another.
I kind of forgot
Turner.
who you said.
Turner. Yeah, something like that.
There's been a number of them over a few years.
Yeah, they've started this rebuild, and now I feel like they've just added that last draft hand that's going to push them into the future. I feel that Carlton are a little bit in purgatory still, and they didn't get the cherry on top, which they thought Charlie Kerno was going to be a premiership key forward for them. So I feel that Melbourne, they get a new coach, they push into the future, and it's a fresh start for them. Whereas I feel that Carlton are sort of backtracking a little bit.
I disagree with that based on the fact that I think whether the fact they won a premiership or not is kind of irrelevant, because either way, like, Carlton needed to readjust, and we all accept this group wasn't going to win a premiership. So I think they're very similar scenarios here.
Can I just add in here too? They've also had, if you take away the 2021 premiership, in those years preceding that, it's been almost identical form. They've gone like finals, haven't gone all the way, and then they dropped off this year.
Yeah, that's right.
They finished 14th 2 years in a row.
Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
they did.
Oh, they did too, sorry. So Melbourne's actually dropped off more
than
Carlton.
Yeah.
Because Carlton only dropped off this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll just talk about Melbourne for the time being rather than referencing Carlton relentlessly. I just think there's an interesting parallel there, both teams accepting that it's time to move. And as you say, Melbourne have sort of accepted that maybe for the last couple of years and didn't trade Petrarca last year. They've done it this year. So overall, how much have they moved in the right direction?
For me, it's great. Like the business that they've done overall. I mentioned it last week I like some of the little moves that they've made here too, like the Jack Steele in, Oliver out. You tick 2 boxes, cultural reset, and you sort of get a pretty similar type player for your depth and probably a better leader overall, someone that's not going to disrupt. Myercheck is a player that they've just needed for a long time, and he brings a lot of experience. He brings a winning mentality, being in the Collingwood Premiership team as well.
Bit of a question mark on Myercheck's health, but
that is fair. But they've paid fairly minimal for him, right? In the end, so it's like a bit of a low risk one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jath and Heath are obviously probably like Heath is like a depth ruck, so I don't know what he's going to do. And Jath's probably a project, but
They desperately needed a ruckman because they've been flirting dangerously with this Max Gawn and like one other ruck on the
Yeah.
list. So they previously had Fullerton and Will Verrill, who we saw in Step Brothers. But they delisted both of those players. They delisted both of those players, and Max Heath was just it just had to happen. So I actually think that's worth noting.
yeah. And overall, I've given this a B+ grade, and the only reason that I didn't give it higher and give it an A was I rate Judd McVie really highly, and
True.
given his age profile and what he could have been, I thought that was a pretty big loss for them.
Yeah,
Overall, I think they've done so well to get what they got for Petrarca. Oliver's probably a cultural move more than anything. They didn't get much back for him, and Spargo's neither here nor there for me. So
yeah. He's basically Jath. That was flipped, that compensation. So I think, you just flip it for another player. Solid work there. I agree on the McVie point. And sorry, forgive me if you've said this in the last 5 minutes or just previously, but Jack Steele for Oliver is that kind of part of that cultural reset where it's, in terms of output and, style of player, it's very similar. And Jack Steele is a captain or previous captain of St Kilda.
this point doesn't come from me either, but people have made the observation that perhaps Jack Steele, given what they want to do with some of those other younger players to be more offensive, Jack Steele's probably a better player for Melbourne than Oliver because Oliver was more of an offensive player and Jack Steele can just be that defensive mid.
Yep. Absolutely agree. And the other thing I'll say about Melbourne is that they seem to be good drafters, particularly early. And I feel a degree of confidence that 7 and 8 will work out well for them. Whether they trade up, I don't know. But looking at their recent first round picks, it's only early days, but they look pretty good to me.
Yeah, Harvey Langford particularly.
Can you project that a little bit for us? What do you reckon they would do?
This year? I think it's on the cards they try and move up. And
Yeah.
I think, but let's just say they don't. 7 and 8. I think it's time to go tall. They haven't really gone tall since Jefferson, and that Jefferson pick isn't looking super hot right now, with all due respect. I think Schubert for one of those picks makes sense. I think he's a great choice for him as a long-term partner to Van Rooyen. And then what else would you go? I mean, Threadgold is probably a little bit early. I did think about maybe a key defender. Xavier Taylor would have to be a consideration if he's still available. He's probably not expected to be.
He'd be great, I reckon, for the Ds.
Yeah.
It's just whether he's still there.
Yeah. They have drafted midfield focus lately. Could they do that again? Is Dyson Sharp suitable for them? I'm not sure about Sharp. I need to get my actual notes up here.
Sharp feels the only problem for me with Sharp is he a little bit too similar to Harvey Langford, given they're both pretty slow.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Threadgold would be an option if he bolts that far, which is probably questionable. Lockie Doverston.
I was going to say Lockie Doverston.
Yeah.
He would suit them from a needs perspective.
Yeah.
But it'd be just whether you think that's too high in the draft to take him and you want to go for more talented players.
Agreed. I would also throw Sam Cumming or Sam Grill into the mix of players that would be kind of suitable for them. And they're sort of like Melbourne-esque players.
I was going to say Sam Cumming feels very them.
Yeah.
And it would be to me, it would be kind of a Petrarca replacement.
Yeah.
Long
yeah,
term.
Exactly. So I think there's a number of good options right in that draft.
Yeah, Joel Falconer is saying
draft.
Grill, Lindsay, and Schubert or Taylor. And Schubert would have to be in their considerations.
Yeah. I think Schubert is good for the Ds.
I was just, let me start it again. I'm happy with this trade period for them because I feel that it marks the end of an era. They got Petrarca and Oliver the flag. They moved on their coach, and now they can start with a fresh reset. They'll move Cozzy onto the ball more. Rivers. Harvey Langford at the start of his career. It just feels like a ride off into the sunset and start again for the Ds. So I think it's very positive for them.
Yeah, it's probably just how similar it is to Carlton's, I suppose. Like it is, I guess the big difference is that Melbourne have a new coach. Maybe it's a bit more of a turning of the page where Carlton are maybe still a little bit in that, still got Michael Voss obviously and have their foot into the past a little bit more maybe. Birdman has a super chat here for $2. Thanks, mate. Who will win a flag next, the Ds or Richmond?
List-wise, which is stipulated in the question, list-wise, you'd have to say Melbourne, in my opinion.
And when you say list-wise, do you mean talent?
The talent is just a little bit further along. And obviously Richmond drafted well last year, but with so many of them being talls, there's too much of a question mark there. It's too early to tell, but I'd say the Ds are a little bit closer. Whether they even get there at all is another question.
I think the question there is, though, definitely the Ds are closer to being competitive, but does that mean they're closer to a flag?
I mean, how do you separate that when Richmond's had one draft? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, how are they closer to a flag? You know, the Demons, you have to also include Trent Rivers and Cozzy Pickett, whereas Richmond probably don't have that equivalent player who's under 25 who is part of that mix.
No, Richmond have a bit of quality in the later part of their career.
Yeah.
Players in the later part of their career, and then they're just very young, right? So
Yeah, it's going to be a long build for Richmond, I think.
Yeah, I think again this 2025 draft will be really important for them. We'll see a lot of those guys from 2024 that get their second year, those tools and stuff like that. If they hit on 2 of those tools, it's probably a big success. And
Yeah,
then
true.
Houghton and Lawler and Smiley, but a lot to play out.
Yeah.
Join in the chorus, Charlie Spargo, North Melbourne. Finbar Malley out the door. Didn't know he existed last week.
I can't believe you didn't hear of Finbar Maley.
I probably watched as much North Melbourne as you do, Dylan, which is not a lot.
Fair.
They added Adelaide's 2026 4th round pick. Wow. In this year's draft, the struggling North Melbourne hold picks 25, 26, 46. Oh boy, Dylan.
It's so weird, isn't it? Like
Shit.
we finished third last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have
it's
got
grim.
pick 25 in the draft.
I didn't realise how bad. I knew that you traded your future first, but now looking at your draft hand and Charlie Spargo.
And then you think, okay, so who did you get? Like, and when I say who did you get, it's not that I'm knocking this player, but like, what? Oh, you must have got 2 picks in the top end last year then, and that's why you don't have one this year. It's like, no, we got pick 2 and 28, 2 and 28, and now we've got 25 and 26.
25 and 26 is the equivalent of pick 12 in the draft. So do you think that makes it a possibility to trade with Carlton? It makes it awkward for them, but if you're just on your side.
Why would they do that?
Yeah, because they'd still have another pick that's just awkwardly there.
I
Harry
get
Dean.
you now because of the Dean.
Yeah, the Dean,
it's not enough.
Yeah, it's
They would rather push that into the future.
Yeah, but it could be another club.
Yeah.
Would you rather do that? Let's say that you could get a top 15 pick or 25 and 26 for North
I'd
Melbourne?
definitely rather, in this draft, I'd
Yeah.
definitely rather the
Earlier pick.
the 25 and 26, you won't get much significant after the bids.
Yeah.
You won't get much at all. I think it's a pretty, like, weirdly just get a little punch in the guts as well with Finbar Maley going out. I know most people won't see that as a big deal, but I just thought he was starting to show something. And sometimes those players, like those cult players, you kind of just like them to be around. So I'm disappointed with that. Not sure. And it's interesting that Adelaide have seen him in a different position as well. Not sure we ever tried him or looked to that. Probably what I would say about that is it shows that maybe in 2026 we'll be looking at Taylor Goad as that option. And maybe that's why Finbar Maley just kind of got pushed out a little bit. Not much to say in the draft. And apparently we made a late bid for Charlie Curnow, which was...
It's like West Coast throwing their hat in the ring for the Bond this year. It's like, we tried, guys. We tried to get better. Look, guff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've given it a D overall.
Yeah, it's pretty grim.
Much more to say from you guys?
I would just say somebody raised the interesting point last show we did was that Matt Whitlock could be considered a top 10 prospect this year. So when you consider it's Matt Whitlock, let's call it a top 10 pick this year plus 25 or 26, 25. And that 25 becomes Harley Barker, then it's really what's Richmond's second pick? Pick 4 for Matt Whitlock and Harley Barker potentially.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sound as horrific when you say it like that.
No, it's
but it's not great. It's not that horrific either.
Yeah. Clearly an element of it, which is unfair on North Melbourne because you just see the picks and the picks look terrible, but they obviously rated Matt Whitlock. They said that they rated Matt Whitlock in the top 10 of last year's draft. I'm not sure how believable that is, given some of the quality in that draft, but it does show how strong 2024 was. And it's unfair. The whole thing is unfair on Matt Whitlock because he's a good player. He hasn't done anything, and he becomes this pawn in angry supporters sort of narrative as well. But yeah, it's not a good trade period, is it?
No.
Good times at Arden Street. We move on to Port Adelaide. Speaking of good times, who bring in Will Brodie, Corey Durden, and Jacob Ware. I think Will Brodie could be a handy pickup for him as a Freo fan.
Of course you do.
We spoke about his 2022 last stream, and it was good, bro.
Yeah.
No one left, so their culture is sound as fuck. And they had a 2026 second round pick. Great. They do not want to draft this year. They've only got one pick in the top 50, which is 49.
Yeah, they traded into the future, didn't they? As part of that Durden deal, they moved into the second round and picked up Durden. So they obviously don't really rate this crop, even though it's South Australian heavy. I think they have their eyes on next year's crop, who I know Dougie Cochran is there, but I don't really know too much past that from SA.
Zach Butters was probably not really the biggest talking point, but we're starting to – the thunderclouds are coming for the Power. Zach Butters is going to leave. And, that's going to be probably the biggest talking point all throughout next year.
Jesse, do you think that the fact that they've gone after these more ready-made players, you said that they don't rate the draft, is it that or is it an attempt to keep Butters and some of the other guys around?
I think it's a pretty average strategy to keep Butters.
Yeah, I know,
honest.
but
so I hope that's not their direct thinking. I just think it's the case of, look, if you're not going to access the draft in a meaningful way that year, it makes sense to throw out some 1-year deals or 2-year deals to some of these players at other clubs and see what you get. It is interesting just how long Port Adelaide have been doing that for very minimal success with recycled players, but I actually it's the opportunity cost is very minimal.
Do you think in a year that there's a lot of talent condensed to your state, is it a good strategy to get into that draft, or would you more take the view that you actually get out of that draft, you wait for them to be drafted to other clubs, and then you wait for them to come home? Because that's
like Rankin and Lukosius did that.
Rankin and Lukosius, Jason Horn-Francis.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then you can get maybe a more favourable deal than having to change your list in a major way to get into the draft before it's happened.
If it was me, I probably wouldn't actively try to get in or out. I think it's a risk once you actively make those decisions. If you're already present in the draft, then I suppose then the question is do you draft a local guy? Or do you take that risk? With them, I suppose there's always the opportunity that, Port Adelaide missed out on Rankin because he went to Adelaide. So there's always still the chance you don't end up with that player. So
yeah, you're a 50-50 chance at that point.
Yeah, I can only imagine they just rate the crop in totality a little bit better next year. The question for me is there any possibility they should have traded Zach Butters this year or explored that possibility? And for clarity, next year he becomes a restricted free agent. And if Port Adelaide have a stinker of a year, let's say bottom 5, and they get pick 6 for Zach Butters. This year, he's contracted, so in theory they can get a better deal for him. But if Hawthorn wanted him, they would have received the best offer they could get, which was the same as the Zach Merritt deal. And if Collingwood wanted him, they would have accepted pick 39 and Jamie Elliott. No, they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
They probably still wouldn't have.
Their only option would have been to trade him to a lower club, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Richmond, basically, would have been the only ones.
That's right, yeah. And that's probably it. That's probably all that needs to be said on it. But I think next year will be a very interesting off-season for the Port Adelaide Footy Club, and I imagine they have a big dip at the draft. And it does seem like if Zach Butters is reportedly expressing a desire to be traded 4 weeks out from trade period or whatever it was, the chances of Port Adelaide retaining him next year are very slim. And in a year where they missed out on Nazaya, there's an alternate universe where they have Nazaya, Wangani Miller and Zach Butters playing together. And next year, or 2027 rather, they could have neither.
Mason Cox has left the Collingwood Football Club. We have breaking news.
Whoa. I like that.
What career? The big American Pie, premiership player.
You said he left the Collingwood Football Club once he retired.
Oh,
he's
he must
retired.
have. Has he retired?
Yeah, I think so.
Did they delist him?
Scroll down. I thought it said retired.
No, it's Mason Cox announces he won't be at the club.
Okay, yeah, right. So, all right, Port Adelaide.
Probably.
They probably.
I mean, they don't really have a star ruckman, don't they? Jordan Sweet kind of took that role. Probably is the number one guy there now.
Well, what happened to Soldo?
Well, he's still there.
Yeah, he's still there. Kane Corns slaughtered him.
He's
recently.
on the list.
He said Kane Corns described him as the worst recruit Port Adelaide's ever had.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. So
he spends a lot of time in Melbourne.
Yeah. I think he wants to be in Melbourne. I think St Kilda was the original link, but now obviously with TDK, that's probably
that's done.
Been the obstacle.
I don't think he'll play
and
AFL
Marshall
again.
Yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen. Could he go back to Richmond? Nank is not old.
I don't know if anyone will take him because he got traded to Port, has hardly played footy there.
Yeah.
The problem with somebody like that, he's kind of tarnished his career in a way because it doesn't seem like he's that bothered by football.
No.
He just wants to be somewhere that he's not.
Getting paid money.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
And he hasn't really ever performed that well anyway, so I wouldn't be wasting too much time on Soldo.
Richmond.
Richmond.
Good movie.
Incoming.
Rich go.
The biggest deal of the off-season, partly because it was so unexpected. Patrick Rechko and pick 38 incoming. and Tyler Young and pick 99 outgoing. Their draft selections are 3, 4, 38 and 81, but they got the GOAT. They
Mate,
got Pat Reg GOAT.
I've never heard a player that hasn't played football be so highly touted when I've never heard of him
This
play
is
before.
Richmond, though.
Patrick Rechko.
Yep.
Traded for pick 99 after getting delisted. Chris from the Tiger Cast, met him the other day at the fan debate. He said he will play round 1 on the wing.
Wow.
He's a great athlete. Apparently, he did athletics throughout high school and coached Guildford, Captain Guildford alongside Murphy.
Do you remember
Reid
I told you last
that?
week that he used to run like 5K before every game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a freak of a runner.
Yeah.
He won the state combine 2K time trial. He smells of a player to me. I don't know why I said smells and not stinks, but he stinks of a player that's going to come.
It's not better.
That was worse.
He stinks of a guy that's going to come in and just play a premiership role. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to be a star of the team.
God, that premiership rolls.
But like he'll,
Yeah.
because of that running ability, he'll come in and just do like, who's the guy in, was it Lambert they used to talk about in that Richmond team
Yeah, one of a few.
that used to kind of do the defensive work for Dustin Martin? No, it was
There's a few you can think of there. I mean, like Camden McIntosh also
Camden
sort of fits
McIntosh.
that. Oh, it is, yeah.
Like that sort of a player. Like he's not going to play a starring role. He's not going to be a midfielder, but he'll play like a subordinate wing role or a high half forward role even, and just
Yeah.
do really well, I feel.
Yeah, okay. That's good for them.
Although, was it you that said the amount of hits that Geelong have had with their rookie listed players or late draft picks, and they've already let him go? So maybe, if any scouting network is a good one to go off Geelong, when have they ever lost a player that's turned into an absolute gun?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm just trying to scatter my brain for it now. But also, like maybe did Geelong in this situation
Clark,
kind of just
maybe.
go like, yeah, he's a bit, like Jesse said last week, he's a little bit too young. And Richmond were particularly keen on him in 2024. So he was a player that they wanted to draft, but obviously with the picks that they had, they just kind of couldn't get it done with the list spots. One came up, and that's part of the reason also we talked about how he was delisted last week and they still paid draft capital. That's so they didn't have to have him go to the preseason draft, presumably. And they just got him in straight away.
Yeah, I think it can only be to get him into the setup, the program earlier. That's the only reason that would have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, Tyler Young, on the other hand, I think is a bit of a loss for them. They got pick 38 back, but I thought he had I think he's shown enough, and I think they'd be disappointed to lose him.
He is, though, what, 27?
27.
And if you look at the older players in Richmond's team, Vlosten and Broad and Bolt is not old. Who's it? They've got somebody else back there. Miller
Yeah.
is another one that plays relatively regularly. So they probably don't need him in that age bracket. And when they're trying to peak in 3 to 4 years, he'll be 30.
Yeah.
Is it a big loss for them?
It's not a big loss. It's just a little bit of a less than ideal one. I think they did try to keep him.
Yeah.
I don't know how West Coast swindled him out of there, to be honest, but McQualter factor, baby. Picks 3 and 4 will be central to their offseason this year. There has been a suggestion that would trade for down and also into the future to strengthen next year. So I'd imagine there's guys that they want that they think still might be there at 12 and are not as interested at pick 4 as such. So who could that be? I read a bit of a connection to Sam Grill.
They like Sam Grill.
Yeah, it seems a little risky to trade forward down too far. If you're also going to bank a future first, like it has to be a reasonable shuffle down the order. So maybe they go Grill at 3, who knows? But that will be an interesting watch from a draft point of view, what they do. Who do you think are the most suitable? Let's say it's pick 3 and 4 right now.
I was thinking about this the other day. I haven't done a full mock draft, so I don't have kind of exact players linked at the moment. I think they would be very keen still on Xavier Taylor, partly because I know that they have been linked to him. I know they've got similar types, but I just think he really suits them, the way that they're going to want to play. Sam Grill is a big one. They love Sullivan Roby. I think with their top pick, they'll be trying to get Sullivan Roby, which it's going to be there'll be the Mexican standoff between West Coast and them of who gets Roby. I wouldn't have thought that Richmond would be so keen on the Dyson Sharp, Oliver Greaves type, given that they drafted Smiley last year and he's kind of the one that they're putting all their hopes in.
Would they double up with Taylor and Trainer? Do you think that's too much of
I don't
the
think
same
so,
thing?
because I think like Hawthorn have shown that you can kind of play that type of game. When those guys are athletic enough to get up the ground and you can use them as runners as well, it's not that big a deal. And Xavier Taylor's so well-rounded, I don't think that double up matters.
Yeah.
I think it matters more from a midfield perspective because you don't want to carry too many of those guys and spend too much draft capital on big, slow inside mids.
Yeah, totally.
Ultimately, that's going to come down to how much they rate Josh Smiley and also how much they rate, say, a Dyson Sharp. If they think the leadership qualities of Sharp is just too good to pass up on, maybe they go for a player like that.
A Birdman says they've got 2 NGAs next year. One of them is a top 10 prospect, so that would be the impetus for them to trade into next year, which I think is good context.
Yeah. Joel Falcon is saying CDT, no one wants him. I think Richmond would still have to consider it. I know they took a lot of tolls. The thing that's putting me against this one is mainly the Sims pickup last year. Because and he played really well this season, which makes me sort of think, like, do you want to get another guy like Cooper Duff-Tytler? You could potentially Sims and Cooper Duff-Tytler are the same player, but potentially you could play them both in the same team. I don't know. It's difficult. This draft is going to be so much about who clubs want as opposed to best available talent.
Yeah, I agree.
Gibcus is a bit of a forgotten commodity.
He
down
is.
in Tigerland.
So injury prone, right?
Yeah.
But very highly touted, right?
Yeah, pick 9, I think.
Yeah. In a good draft.
21?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is that super draft.
Yeah.
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 No, he looks like a really good player as well. So they do have plenty of tall defenders. But like I said, Hawthorn are kind of the blueprint there. What did you guys rate this off-season of Rechko in, Tyler Young out?
Yeah.
Don't care?
They did the brunt of their work last year with the Matt Whitlock trade, so I would say it doesn't matter that they weren't super active. It's really draft focused for them now.
Yeah. Birdman says Sims has a bad injury, but I don't think that would dictate their drafting.
St Kilda, the most active, arguably, of the trade period.
Arguably, yeah. 4 best 22 players.
Yeah, just insert Silvani, De Koning, Flanders, and Ryan into that. That's full manager career mode. I want these players come into my team.
That's simulate to the end of the season and then just do trade period and then simulate the rest of the season. That's what I used to do on FIFA Manager.
I feel like there's a post-trade period sort of, I don't know, like outcry from fans where they want to paint this to be a bad trade period. But how can you do that?
As St Kilda fans?
No. Opposition fans, whether that's jealousy or whatnot, but there is a sort of like, oh yeah, they'll stuff up their salary cap, and they kind of look at all these like ambiguous things.
It's very, very Premier League or Man United-esque. Yeah, like the amount of times we've just signed like 4 players that we expect to slot straight into our team and go well. Maybe it goes differently for St Kilda, but there was a transfer window. I know I'm sort of changing the topic here, but we brought in Mkhitaryan, Pogba and Zlatan, and everyone was like, we're going to win the league. And then it just went to shit. So, hopefully for St Kilda fans,
hard to
that's
compare
not
them to Man United, though, just because of how rubbish Man United are at just sort of general decision-making and business and stuff like that. Oh, come on.
No, I'm joking.
You're like the biggest spending team in the world and 15th in the Premier League.
Yeah, no, that is true.
Needs to be studied.
I think these are all great gets. Higgins in the forward line was great this year. Liam Ryan complements that. Sam Flanders, probably a similar type to what they've had in there. Do you reckon, Dill? The St Kilda midfield? Do you think Flanders complements it well? Do you think they already have that type?
Probably got better movement than some of those previous guys.
I think he is better than them. But when I think of the Freo St Kilda game this year, it was McRae and Garcia and Windhager. They were all just dominating on the inside.
Yeah, I just think they have a lot of options to go into the midfield now, and they don't have many. I don't know how to say this properly, but they don't have many just genuine midfielders, and Flanders is a genuine midfielder.
Yeah.
McRae is a stopgap as a first possession player, so I think they'll want Sam Flanders to do a little bit more of that. You've got Philippou, you've got possibly Darcy Wilson, you've got Garcia, you've got Toby Travaglia. They're all midfielders that aren't quite midfielders yet, but you'd think some of them will work based on the football that they've played. So I feel this was a good pickup for them. They probably paid slightly too high in pick 7, but
for Flanders,
Flanders, I think it was a good move.
We actually brought this up on the debate show that I was on, during the week about St Kilda, and I sort of asked, will they improve much? And it sort of talked myself into a pretty good argument. I think as a smaller market club, with all due respect to St Kilda, they face the very real reality that they have to overpay to land some of these big fish. If they're pound for pound offering the same amount of money as Collingwood for Tom De Koning, like which way do you think that goes? They are up against the wall in that scenario. They have to overpay for these players, and then probably did per player, probably offer, I'm going to guess, and the Lalikalia one, which didn't happen. They have to offer they have to pay this small club premium. And that's just a reality of our league. I do think that in time, if St Kilda becomes a successful playing group, which at this point they're not that yet, they haven't, they didn't play finals this year, then I do think that will get easier for them over the time. So to this point, was this what they necessarily needed to do to ensure that their team is more competitive over the next 3? Obviously, keeping Nazar is a big factor in this as well, where it will get easier and more players will want to come play for St Kilda when they're playing finals.
Yeah.
I think that is what they're envisaging.
And it's when you're doing anything, like if it's something in business or whatever, you have to have a strategy and make decisions. Making no decision is worse, which is what I feel a lot of the clubs down the bottom, you mentioned the small market thing, that's the environment that St Kilda are living in. At least they're doing something. We don't know if it's going to work, and it could come unstuck and they could be in a difficult position in 10 years. But as a fan, I would rather them try to do something than do nothing.
Or do they really lose a first rounder and a second rounder for Flanders and Ryan?
Pick 7 isn't absurd for Flanders.
Yeah, you know what you're getting with him, don't you?
Yeah,
in this year's draft.
This draft,
And he's ready to go. He can play well straight away.
The league. Sorry.
I was going to say he was undervalued at the Gold Coast, so it's a good move for me.
Yeah, they lose captain Jack Steele, who's been struggling there for a while now. Fans quite sad to see him go. They hold on to Rowan Marshall, which I think is massive. I think that 2-ruck dynamic, lots is made of the Freo one with Darcy and Jackson, but it's basically like having Jackson's a different type, but 2 very mobile rucks around the ground, which we've spoken about. So I think that's going to be massive for them. I think from what I've seen of Rowan Marshall's best, his contested marking down the ground is elite. TDK probably brings that a bit more, but I wonder if they bring Rowan Marshall behind the football more in 2026. And then they've sort of got 2 pillars at each end, a very solid back 6. They didn't end up bringing in Lee Kalia. They didn't want to pay him the money. And then Silvani can play at both ends as well. So yeah, they're going to have a lot more flexibility with the Magnets.
Yeah, it's a bit Hawthorn-esque, isn't it? Where you can just play players in different positions and just test the opposition. I feel like Ross Lyon will thrive with that sort of adaptation that he can use.
Yeah. This aggressive off-season is also against the backdrop of 4 years where I think St Kilda openly said they wanted to attack the draft. I think they did a really good job.
Yeah.
I guess my final statement on them would be that I don't anticipate a bounce as early as next year. I still think the gap between them and the rest of the finalist sides was too big. I think maybe 2 years from now, we do see a surge, and I actually think it will be more likely driven by the guys they've drafted in the last 4 years. Obviously, Nazai is one of them, but Mateus Philippou, I think, has the upside that they crave to move into that next bracket. So I think it will come. I don't think it'll happen next year. But I do broadly applaud what they've done. However, we didn't actually mention at all what happened with Lee Kalia, which was an absolute shit show.
Yeah, probably a good result for them in the end. Like, they made an offer, probably overs, and then they backed out of it. Maybe if it was a bit more modest, they could have got him through the door, and then they would have had a very strong back 6. Can you tell me about Travalia, Dylan? Like, he didn't really have a massive year this year, but he was really highly touted last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm a massive fan. A tall, athletic. At the moment, he's I suppose you call him like a third tall defender. He can intercept and play aerially, and he can run the ball out of defence. I think long term, you'd see him as a bit of a Will Day-esque midfielder. Yeah. That's kind of what Will Day did at the beginning of his career. Started as that tall interceptor, hybrid-y type.
Okay.
And went into the midfield. He's tough as anything, can run, kind of has all the attributes. It's just getting time. But I always saw him as a player did he go top 10 in the end? He was about 10, wasn't he?
Yeah, 9 or 10.
Did they have consecutive picks?
They have consecutive picks, but it got pushed back after the Ashcroft and Lombard bid. But yeah, anyway, it's around that 10 mark. He was always one to me that would take a little bit longer. He's quite skinny, frail looking in a way, but he goes so hard at the ball. Bit of an Angus Clark type player at the moment with maybe some high-end upside for the midfield. So I'm a big fan.
You gave him big raps last year, and I was keen to see him come on. And then Taru came into the side and really took the spotlight.
Tyru's just so exciting because of his athleticism.
He just looks like he's going to be the best interceptor in the game very soon.
Yeah, nobody springs that. He won the jumping vertical at the combine. Tyru, like just a freak. Yeah.
On to Sydney, who were active this trade period, bringing in one of the best key forwards in the competition, Charlie Curnow. The brother of the best contested player in the competition, Jaiva Sarong, and Malcolm Roses Jr. from Gold Coast. Will Hayward, Ollie Florent, and Jack Buller leave. They have said ta-ta to their next 3 first-round picks, gave up a third for Sarong. They hold a few picks in the 30s and 40s in this year's draft. Massive to get Charlie Curnow in. We spoke about this as being a real tilt for the flag in the next couple of years whilst Chad Warner's there and Charlie Curnow is still in his prime. Boys, what are we saying?
Oh, yeah, I think it was very productive trade period. I think when the Curnow story first broke, I did think it was unlikely Sydney would be able to facilitate a deal. In the end, they give up one of the most aggressive offers for a player we've ever seen. Just in the fact that we've never seen 3 first-round picks move like that before, I don't think. Maybe did Freo offer 3 for Jackson? Doesn't matter. If they did, they got one back maybe. I can't remember. Either way.
2.
It was just 2, was it? Doesn't matter.
The difference between Freo and Sydney there, though, is Sydney are a northern team and have the academies coming through. I think that's a factor in that.
Age is also a factor as well. So it is quite aggressive. But yes, like on your point, this year, which obviously is included in one of those 3 picks, they get Max King anyway. So we're really talking about 2 years where they don't hold a first-round pick, and who knows what will happen after that. The question is, well, I mean, firstly, with their arrivals, like Charlie Curnow is the major answer to their woes forward of centre, particularly talls like McDonald and Amati. Now he comes in and largely addresses that issue. Jai Sarong is probably more speculative to become a first choice key back, given his height.
He's that third tall. So who else do they have there?
Well, that's probably still a gap for them then.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
McCartan's good but undersized as well.
He'll slot straight into that best 22, I believe. Maybe not as a key defender.
I think he will too.
tall.
I think they'll maybe potentially repurpose some tools. I'm just trying to think. So Melican, McCartan are the sort of 2
Robbie Fox.
key pillars. Blakey is the...
he's running defender really, isn't he?
He
Probably
is.
frees him up a
He
bit
can
then,
play
doesn't it?
tall a little bit. You could play... And then they've... who's the guy that they drafted out of Werribee last year?
Last year, Bice.
Not
Bice.
bad.
Riley
right,
Bice
yeah,
is
I
another
see,
one.
yeah.
So again, if you look at all these teams recruiting, they're recruiting a lot of these hybrids. Hybrids are growing in the
true.
defensive half of the ground that can play tall and small. Because
Interesting.
they're constantly having to swap between a Nick Watson, a Toby Green, and then go to somebody a little bit taller, like a Gunston-y type as well.
That's true.
Hamling Sade, he was rumoured to go, so that's
Yeah.
another key defender.
Yeah,
there.
I reckon ideally he wouldn't be in the...
Yeah.
did Francis stay in the end?
No, he got cut, I reckon.
He got cut. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think personally for me, Sydney overall in the trade period actually won the trade period because they are the only team. We've gone through all of these teams so far, and Melbourne have made these good moves. Carlton have made these good moves. These guys actually move the needle for 2026, so they could actually win a premiership off the back of this.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can't discount a team that has Chad Warner, Errol Goulden, Nick
Heaney.
Blakey, Isaac Heaney. I knew I was missing someone
Papley.
obvious there, Papley. Like, I think the talent speaks for itself. And I think this was a fantastic move for them. And I don't think they'll really feel the pain of going a couple of years without first-round picks in 26 and 27, which one of them is a Tasmania draft anyway.
They probably don't have that many stars behind the ball, but Curnow makes the forward line infinitely better.
Well,
as a
Blakey
target
is
man.
one, and I think Sarong plays similar. So I think, like, not absolute superstars, but...
He'd have to be more lockdown though, wouldn't he? Sarong.
No, I think he has that ability, but he has shown in the VFL his ability to transition.
I reckon at AFL level, he doesn't play with the ball as much.
Maybe.
I reckon it'd be a bigger deficiency coming from the VFL with your offensive
Possibly.
skills.
I don't really rate the Swans' depth. Everyone's sort of saying they're going to jump back into the top 8, make a premiership push next year. I don't think they will. I think they may be on, the sort of bottom 4 of the 8, but I don't think they're going to make a premiership push. Sorry, Heath, if you're in the chat.
That midfield is insane though.
Yeah.
That's the best midfield in the comp.
Yeah, definitely.
What, you take it above Gold Coast?
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, I agree.
Heaney, Warner, Goulden, Rowbottom.
Yeah. I'd probably take Gold Coast.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Brisbane?
I'm not sure. I'm a Sydney man.
It's definitely the most...
Sydney believer, I should say.
Brisbane and Sydney have really different midfields because like Sydney have a lot of speed in there and power.
Yeah, no,
whereas
Warner
Brisbane's
terrifies me.
Brisbane's more technical.
Yeah. Win a flag, Heaney. Not Heaney, Warner, and then come play in the purple, brother.
Like, yeah, for me, they win the period.
Yeah. All right.
I'm
going
going to take a tinkle.
Can I just say one
you guys do the
while
Eagles.
you do this, I'm going to say like there's actually doing the rounds on social media. Will Hayward snubs Dean Cox in his farewell.
Oh,
message.
yeah. So me and Jesse were at the fan debate the other day, and I showed him my phone of Will Hayward's Instagram post. Did you see it?
Well, I've got it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Instagram.
It was such a pleasure to play under Horse.
Yep. I'll read it. I'll just read it out while Jess is in the toilet. To the Swans family, fans and staff, thank you. My time over the last 9 years has been some of the best moments of my life. The club is full of great people from the top to the bottom. It was an absolute honour to play under Horse for such a long time and be led by some of the all-time Swans greats. I never took wearing the red and white for granted and take great pride in being a life member of the football club. So
Life member.
A very specific shout out to John Longmire and not a lot of love for Deanie.
I don't know if Dean's the man.
You've said this.
I've said it. He's shaking the apple cart a bit too much at a club that's been too good or not too good because they've missed a lot of grand finals. But
I think it's too early to make definitive statements over
I
whether
think it's too early to say that they're going to win the freaking flag, man.
I didn't say they're going to win the flag.
I'm not saying you are, but people are.
They're going to be in the conversation with that list. I think what you can say about Dean Cox, and I think it's fair enough from your point of view, is that he had a crap first season.
Lots of injuries plays into that, but also they just look shit round one, and we just saw it, bro.
They also did win 10 of their last 12.
Well, yeah.
I agree with you though. Like you can't. People will say they won 10 of their last 12, but like when you know that you're out of finals, there's not as much pressure to be able to just cut through teams as well. So I feel like that's a factor in that.
Heath Sheehan says Sydney's Kerno Coop and overall trade period makes me hungry, which is happy, horny, and hungry. Go Swans.
What I'll say on Cox, I do think you've gone off him too quick. I think we got to give him a chance. That being said, what I think screams from Dean Cox is that he's a very abrasive man, I reckon. That's the impression I got from Cox. And I'll be completely honest, when he was ruled out of the West Coast job, I was privately a little bit relieved because I don't know if that's a very modern style. The Eagles fans making rumours because we are trying to rewrite history and make ourselves feel better about missing out on him. But there was a suggestion the Eagles told Cox thanks, but no thanks. And then he ruled himself out.
Devil's advocate on that though. Coaching Sydney is a very different ballgame to coaching West Coast right now.
Totally. Yeah.
And having that abrasive style, I think would work better with players that are 25 plus.
Totally agree.
Sub 25.
Yep. I'm with you on that.
There is a little bit to say that, he doesn't have all the players in his corner though. If Hayward's leaving and not mentioning Cox.
Yeah, I agree. You could certainly pull up that thread.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I reckon that's pretty definitive, that message that he's specifically not, because Cox was there the entire time.
Yeah.
Like as an assistant as well. So there'd be nothing wrong with just putting his name in.
Yeah, Horse and Cox.
Yeah.
Horse Cox. Wow, come on.
How has no one made that joke before? That's just been sitting right there for 12 months.
For longer than that.
Yeah.
Surely that would be somewhere on the internet.
Yeah,
Should we go to the West Coast Eagles?
Oh, should we ever?
How did you rate your trade period, Jesse?
Why don't you just run through some of the statistics?
Well, you brought in Starcevic and Young. You lose Allen, Campbell Chesser. That's a good trade period in and of itself. And Liam Ryan.
Please.
You gain a 2026 second, which is probably fair for Liam Ryan, I think.
Yep.
And you lose a 27th third. You hold picks 1, 2, 3 first rounders and some decent picks in the second round as well. What are you saying?
I think that Starcevic is a really good player and strengthens us in a position we were actually not super deficient in, but nonetheless you get the quality player in. I think Tyler Young addressed a gaping list need, and I think he comes in and is clear best 22. So I'm really comfortable with those ins. It sucks to lose Allen, but the context is we get pick 2. So overall, I don't think anyone's saying that West Coast is gutted with that.
He was struggling a lot for you guys as well, wasn't he?
This year in particular, yeah.
What does your forward line look like now? Obviously, it was still good. I agree, it was a good move, but sort of you got Waterman probably leading the line.
Yeah, he's going to lean heavily on Waterman, and Job Shanahan, I think,
Shanahan's the man.
He'll play every game next year if he's fit.
Yep.
And then it depends what West Coast do from a ruck setup, because I think Archer and Bailey Williams potentially both play, given there's 23 players in a team now. So it's raw, but talented as well. So that's not a huge concern for us. It's a shame to lose Chesser right as he started to play well for 4 games. But we got to move on fairly quick. These things happen.
Played well for 4 games.
I am quite critical of the way the Eagles sort of handed Liam Ryan over. For a fair market price, that's not the problem, but he was contracted. And what I would say broadly about West Coast needs is that we've strengthened in the back half, which wasn't our biggest issue. Our biggest issues are certainly its stoppage and ground level players inside forward 50. Liam Ryan was the second best goal scorer at West Coast this year, and the first was Jamie Cripps, who is 34 next year. We do get Waterman back, but I think when you look at what happens when the ball hits the deck and when the Eagles go inside 50, they haven't addressed to this point one of the biggest weaknesses at the club. And I would just say overall certainly didn't move the needle. On the other hand, the back six is taking shape really nicely, I think. When you consider the medium-sized players like Jinby, Hoff, Starcevic, and Tom McCarthy, and Liam Baker, who won the best and fairest, that part of the ground is looking nice, but I am no more confident that West Coast are going to improve unless they pull a rabbit out of the hat. And I do think this draft, it helps that we have picks 1, 2, and 13. It's really got to be the centerpiece of our off-season. And it places a fair bit of pressure on it. This is essentially the compensation for Oscar Allen and Tom Barras because we dealt with futures for Hawthorn. So it's an important draft. It's not a particularly strong one, but naturally the Eagles can come out winners, and I do think they need to focus on ground level players.
Is it concerning for you that you step into it? Like, this is kind of your first big draft where you've got a lot of picks. You've always had sort of one pick in the top end, but to have this amount of volume right at the top end, is it a concern that this one is at least on appearance weaker? Yeah,
it's not ideal, but I still think you can. I still think
pick 1 and 2 should be sweet.
Exactly right.
Agree.
It's just a matter of who are the best players for West Coast. So I would explore trading pick 2 down unless West Coast are convinced it's Sullivan Roby. But if it's Dyson Sharp or Cooper Duff-Tytler, I think Duff-Tytler is certainly wrong for West Coast, personally. I feel quite strongly about that. And I think Dyson Sharp could still be there at 7 if we were to trade down, for instance. So for me, I'd be looking at a mix of Dersman as a lock if we don't trade the pick. And then, maybe if we traded down, go Sharp. And someone like a Doveston, I think, is kind of necessary for West Coast.
That'd be massive.
I'll be flat if we sort of add players like with no disrespect to the player, like Jacob Farrow, again, is another example of a player who is good enough on talent at pick 13, but why would you pick another halfback flanker when you've got Bo Allen as well last year? So I'm going to be very particular about what West Coast should do in this draft, and that's ultimately what it's going to come down to this offseason.
You mentioned off the top about the lack of small forwards. I think that's such a big issue too when you think about if you've got quality in that area, the opposition can't run the ball out of your forward line as easily as well. So it's almost a defensive thing as well as an offensive thing. Like keeping that ball locked in your front half. So that's a big deal. What is your ideal draft situation for West Coast this season, including trades? I know that's tough to map out.
Yeah, so I love trading 2 down to 7 and 8 for Melbourne. And I feel like they are the sort of club who might be tempted by that.
In chase of?
The suggestion is they love Sullivan Roby.
Yes.
This is complete rumour mill. So, but you asked me my ideal scenario.
No, I think that all checks out. Yeah. That would be the player that would turn your head in that.
I'm just laughing at the comments, sorry.
Yeah, okay. That would be the player that would turn your head enough to do that, I think.
Totally.
7 and 8, it feels like a fairly big price to pay.
I'd go Sam Cumming or Dyson Sharp, but not both.
With the next pick.
With
7.
Yeah, so we got Dersma. Let's lock that in. I'd say 7 and 8 would be one of Cumming and Sharp, and then Doveston at 8. Bearing in mind on the night that's like pick 11. And pick 13, that opens up your possibilities a little bit more. Maybe if Farah comes into the mix, if we've got some of these other players that fit our needs better.
Well, I was going to say, we have inside word that Dersma is pretty keen to get to West Coast as well. So it shouldn't be much of a go.
At least we know he doesn't actively fear the idea.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen in 3 years.
He does have a relationship. I know that's not the reason that you would recruit him, but he does have a relationship with Harley Reid, right? I think they're not together anymore, but he dated his sister.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think as far as I've been told, they get along well. So that's no real concern. But for me, it's got to be midfielders, like stoppage players, transition players, ground level players. None of this project tall stuff for me. I feel very strongly about that.
On to the final team. The Western Bulldogs bring in Connor Butterick. They lose Hugo Hagen. They have a first round pick. I think they just hold their own picks, 14 and 33 in this year's draft.
They did move down with GWS, so they did switch that pick. Just a small little note there for you. So.
Yeah. Bit underwhelming, I would say, for the Dogs, given as an offensive machine, what do you label them as? You said Jamari Ugle-Hagen kicked 40 goals in a
supercharged offense.
You did.
A supercharged offense.
Good memory.
I just mean that from a statistical perspective. So you can read off goals in a high-scoring team. the forwards will have bigger numbers than in a lower scoring team.
With the dominant midfield too.
With the dominant midfield. But the goals in the lower scoring team are just as important in context of the wins, if that makes sense. So scoring a lot of goals in a high-powered offense isn't as valuable as scoring a lot of goals in a low-powered offense.
Yes. Point I'm making is Bontempelli is the best player in the AFL. They did not go hard enough to shore up that back line.
Well, they went pretty hard.
They didn't go hard enough. They didn't get anyone in, man.
Yeah, Cal Wilkie was contracted and loyal.
They kept Karmas.
But he's not doing anything for them. Why didn't they go harder at Silvani or Lee Kalia or Stephen May or Tyler Young?
Okay, we'll separate those all very different scenarios here. That we know that they went hard for Cal Wilkie and they went hard for Silvani.
Well, Cal Wilkie's like going hard for Lionel Messi.
It's exactly like
Point I'm
that.
making, you're not going to just pry out a Cal Wilkie from St Kilda. That's not a realistic option.
Agreed.
It's like
Ultimately, it
going for
was
Sam Taylor.
unrealistic.
Let's just go for Sam Taylor. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I suppose you could mark against them that they failed with Silvani to get him over the line, but I mean, he had a St Kilda connection. Lee Kalia, as far as I'm aware, they didn't really pull up that thread too hard. Who else did they go for? Jordan Butts as well, another contracted player.
Jordan Butts would have been the one that I feel could have potentially moved the needle.
Yeah.
I reckon they are in that same boat of like, we don't really want another one of these athletic tools. We want a genuine lockdown defender. So he would have been the one. They also delisted Liam Jones, right?
Yes.
True. I just feel like the Dogs are wasting their time. I feel passionately about this because they have one of the best halves in the competition, best front half teams in the competition. So much firepower. Midfield's ridiculous. But they're just going to continue to get exposed behind the ball. And until they fix that, they're not going to make a premiership push.
To be fair though, Drew, is like they don't, as a club, they don't have a lot to offer. So it is difficult. This goes into the St Kilda conversation because again, small market team, the Western Bulldogs in Melbourne, it's hard to bring players, and that's why I'm not critical at all of St Kilda going hard for these big fish. Western Bulldogs probably would do it if they could.
Why can't they?
Because they're a small team, like small crowds, big name players generally don't want to go there. They've built a really good team through the draft. So they're paying guys a lot of money at the moment. And it's just hard to bring in any guys that would move the needle for bigger money. St Kilda can do it right now because they're in this developing phase. But the Dogs wouldn't have the salary cap space to bring in anybody big right now, would they?
It just feels like they're trying to breach through the water and there's just a lid on and it's just that defense being shit, keeping them in. And it just feels like they're wasting time.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless Buslinger comes on next year and has a real breakout season.
Well, yeah, he's a player who hasn't really cracked many regular games. So it does kind of imply they're not sold on him, to be honest, or at least they're waiting for him to really prove himself, which is fair enough from a culture point of view.
Here's a question. Sydney and the Western Bulldogs, a bit similar. I reckon Sydney's defence is better than the Western Bulldogs, but who would you take from midfield to forward? Which team would you take? I think you would take Western Bulldogs because of the firepower they have.
Yeah.
I'd take Sydney's midfield and...
So we're talking there...
I'd say Sydney's midfield, Dogs forward line.
Sydney's midfield, Dogs forward line.
Are we taking into account the age of respective players? Because the Bontempelli factor is a big one.
But let's go 2026.
And Liberatore.
The Bont's age factor, I wouldn't say is particularly significant. Like he's still right at the top of his game.
Agreed. But I just meant like if you were coaching one of them, or like you had the choice of either club to coach and making an assessment, because then there's a little bit more pressure ever so slightly on the Dogs. I
would take Sydney straight up just because I feel like they've got a more sustainable model with the football club that they are.
Yeah.
But on,
I guess playing group.
Purely on, if you just kept that to playing group, I would take the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, see, I think they're a little bit more vulnerable. I forgot about Sam Darcy for a split second there.
Yeah.
I did forget about Sam Darcy, yeah. But I was thinking more like Liberatore and Bont, those guys on the wrong side of 30. It just creates a little bit more time pressure, I think.
I just think they always, they just keep recycling through, like getting players from the draft that are really good. Like even, I think Riley Sanders is still going to be a star. Whether he stays there or not's another question.
Joel Frazier.
Frazier's coming through. Ed Richards is only 24, I think, 25 maybe.
He is 26.
I always get the player ages wrong. He's great though, isn't he? Richards has come into his own. Yeah. He's one of the best mids in the comp.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say their fans though would think it is a bit of a swing and a miss to go another trade period here without really addressing the needs. That's how I would feel if I was a fan.
I reckon them this upcoming year will be the biggest talking point of where the fuck are they?
I feel like it's a pretty regular one for the Dogs.
Yeah, it is.
Rightly or wrongly, that has been the case.
I think it's
Jordan
gonna get-
Croft going
Croft
back.
is another one.
Yeah, another good forward. He's a good forward too.
It's just going to get louder and louder the longer the Bont does not compete for a flag.
Yeah.
Do you think they should have made that well-publicised move of Norton behind the ball at some point?
I wouldn't. be
Maybe not
against it at
Norton.
all.
I would explore Croft.
Crofty.
Yeah,
Oh,
just,
yeah, it's
just simply
actually
because Norton's like that is working at the moment.
Yeah.
So you'd rather move a piece that, I mean, Croft does look talented, but he's obviously not as central.
O'Donnell, was that another one? Is it O'Donnell?
O'Donnell's he's a
he's a
tall
defender,
defender, but he's a
yeah.
medium. He's a
I
hybrid.
like him, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's that can play tall, small. Someone mentioned in the comments too, I feel like more with the Western Bulldogs, it's around their depth, and they have a lot of players in the team that seem to consistently make it into the best 23 that aren't good enough, particularly in the small defenders. So I can see why they went for Connor Buderick. He comes in for like a Lockie Bramble, who those players frustrate me a lot. But you're probably right. Like overall, you couldn't give them a massively good grade on this off-season.
Yeah, no, that's right. But again, pretty good at the draft. So in pick 14, who do you think's suitable for them? I suppose Threadgold.
Yeah.
Would you go as early, bearing in mind 14 becomes like 19 or 18?
Yeah, I think if you've got a big list need like that and the draft is fairly even, I think a club like the Western Bulldogs, they'll probably look at swooping up a talent, sort of like what Freo did with Murphy Reid. Someone will slide and they'll probably end up just taking someone like that. But you could, if you had a player amongst that top 20 conversation that you really liked, I think you could go for someone like a Threadgold. He is from South Australia, which probably brings an element of risk. But they could bring in, you could go for someone like a Harley Barker with that pick, bit of like a prototypical winger as well. Also from SA, ironically.
Yeah, true.
Should we say who are our top 3 winners of the trade period?
We can do that.
Yeah, I'll go Sydney number 1, Carlton number 2,
Wow.
and Melbourne number 3.
Okay. I think St Kilda have to be in this mix.
Yeah.
Fuck, I forgot about St Kilda.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think St Kilda have to be in this mix, and somebody that just eluded me. Somebody just popped in out of my head. Yeah, Melbourne and Carlton for similar sorts of reasons. Oh, Gold Coast with Petrarca.
Oh, jeez, I forgot about Gold Coast as
Yeah.
well.
So what's your 1, 2, 3? What would you say? Winners first?
I think it might actually be the Gold Coast Suns.
Over the Swans.
Yeah, in the sense that what Gold Coast gave up is largely irrelevant to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got less to lose.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So can I just do mine again quickly?
Yeah.
I'll go Sydney at 1 still. I'll go Gold Coast at 2, and the Saints at 3, and then I'd have Melbourne and Carlton behind that.
I would agree with that order. I suppose we're separating Melbourne and Carlton because that's a lot more draft focused, and while we give them credit for that, there's obviously still some little bit more risk.
It's not game changing.
Yeah, it's not
and
as
there's
game
still a lot
changing.
to play out.
Yeah, but we'll give them credit for those moves, I would say.
I'm going to
The Giants?
say St Kilda at 1 because they instantly become a better team next year. I'm going to go St Kilda at 1. Probably go for the D's at 2.
Wow.
Who am I missing here? Actually, no, Gold Coast at 2 and then D's at 3.
Interesting. No Carlton?
Nah.
I wonder if there's any bias with those assessments there. Yeah. Loves Melbourne, hates Carlton.
Yeah, probably.
The word is Dogs will go hard for Butters.
That's
okay,
true.
let's segue out here. Druzy, you have to go very, very shortly.
I've got work.
Vicar, how's our Zoom going? Have we got any takers? We haven't started. All right, we're going to take a couple of audio calls really quickly before Druzy leaves, maybe 1 or 2.
Let's give it a crack.
We'll just get ready. We've got some headphones here. If anybody wants to jump on the Zoom conversation, click the link in the description and we will start this.
We are going
Pride
to speak
of
to you.
Brisbane Town.
This is more of a test for the future more than anything. But if you've got a question for us or a statement,
Now we're coming through. Can you hear yourself?
I can hear myself.
This is kind of hot.
It actually is quite good, isn't it?
I rate it. But when we're watching the footy, it'll be,
You'll
bit
want
tricky.
that ambient sound.
you will.
When the
In the
audience
mix.
tries to call you,
Drop it
coming
like
through
it's
hard.
Coming.
Oh no, what did you say? This is kind of hot. That's what it was.
When the brothers give an attitude. Come on, Jesse.
I hope somebody actually jumps on. We need to catch a fish.
Especially with our little headphones on.
Yeah.
God, we're so professional. We're so doing this.
Do I look cute with these on?
Yeah, I can see you guys in
You
the
look like a chipmunk.
in the super sauce. Everybody looks pretty cute. 261 in the chat. We don't have Rogue Riot today. I haven't seen him jump in the chat.
Birdman asks the three
That's a good
worst.
point.
Who had the three worst?
Ooh. Surely North Melbourne are in there.
I don't know. We're really talking about inactivity, I suppose.
Yeah.
And whose inactivity was the most costly.
I feel like if you juxtapose North Melbourne's draft position against their inactivity in the trade period, it was quite bad because we don't have a lot of clubs didn't do much, but they've got this really strong draft hand.
Yeah,
We've done it. We're just going to do nothing.
that's true.
The Dogs. I'd chuck in that basket.
Would you?
I think that's fair to throw them in there. I was thinking them too, just because of where they're at as a list.
Even with King Booterick?
Yeah, even with King Booterick.
This live video will be much, much better without Druzy. Thanks, Mal.
Mal.
I'll hang him up.
Absolutely brutal.
And this chat would be better without you, Mal. Nah, we have fun here. We'll become friends one day.
So in theory, we should be able to see the Zoom person on this screen. We don't have the link in the description.
Could you put it in the chat and pin it or something like that?
Yeah, do that. I thought I put that in. But then we changed stream.
We changed stream.
changed stream. What an absolute mess. There it is. It's in the comments.
I hope Mal calls.
I hope Mal calls too.
How you going, Mal?
Saucy as anything. Who else would you put in the bad trades? I'm just going to bring back my notes.
It's funny that we just talked about it for
Collingwood.
3 hours and I don't know. Yeah, I guess with Collingwood though, their hands were just so tied. I don't know what we could have realistically expected from them.
Can you stack trade periods on trade periods for that and say they've kind of hurt themselves?
Nah, I reckon we isolate it. Yeah, it goes back too far because you could just more broadly talk about list positions.
Captain Flash says Hawks. Totally, I think
That's
that
fair.
was a horrendous window for them.
Yeah, Hawks, the Dogs, just simply because the inactivity.
You forget about teams like Hawthorn because they are a really good club anyway.
Yeah,
So-
I mean Geelong had a bit of a swing and a miss.
They did.
Swing and a miss rather. Yeah.
And they normally get deals done, so there's an expectation that they'll do it again.
Yeah, but ultimately, I don't think it's a big deal for them.
Have we got anyone wanting to join Producer Vic? No one wants to join.
No
244 people that watch us every week, and not one of them wants to speak to
We
us.
can kind of spring it on them, to be fair.
We did.
We can make
did.
this a more regular thing going forward, but we're just going to sit here looking cute for a little bit, and if nobody calls, that's fine too.
I think this will be a cool element for next season. Jacob is on the line. We have
Hey,
Jacob.
Go, Jacob. Go, Jacob.
Here we go.
Jacob
Get in there, Jacob.
is connecting to the audio.
On this stream, you won't actually be on the screen. You'll just be the audio.
Cool. I know you weren't talking to me.
No, I wasn't. I was talking to Jacob.
In the future, little pop-up graphic. Bling, you are bringing into the flat. Bling. Something like that.
That'd be great.
That would be absolutely lovely. Everyone's on Jacob here. Lower class Brum says.
Jacob.
Doesn't have audio coming in.
Yo.
Yeah, we got him.
We got him.
How you going?
Is he turned on the ATEM audio just to make...
Good. Hold on. I'm just trying to sort out my audio.
No, you're good, man.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Hopefully the chat can
Yes, I can.
confirm that they can hear us too.
We got him.
Yep. If everyone in the chat can just give us a thumbs up there, or they do have him. You're saying?
How do you feel, Jacob? You're the first audio caller on Footy from the Flat.
Oh, I feel bloody privileged, to be honest. Long time commentator, first time speaker.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, mate. Good to have you here.
Loud and clear. We got you. Who do you support, Jacob?
The Mighty Tigers.
The Mighty Tigers. What do you think about our man, Rechko?
Look, to be honest, I had no idea who he was until maybe a couple of days ago. And now I think he's going to be the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, I must admit, it's honestly, not to sound like a flex, but I feel like it's rare that I have never heard of a player. And Patrick Rechko, when I saw that, I thought he was a player agent. I was like, yeah, right, what's this about? And
he doesn't sound like a real person, does he?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't. I mean, but you had heard of him, Dylan.
I had, only because I'd followed the 2024 draft sort of, and he had, he played for the Oakley Chargers. He was an integral part of that Chargers team with Finn O'Sullivan, Jagger Smith, and he was in the Metro team. So playing off a wing in one of the strongest Metro teams of all time, a very good player. And somebody that's probably in that draft, given the quality of it. We might even see this a little bit more. Some of the players that just missed out on that 2024 draft will start to get picked up by other clubs because it was so strong overall. Jacob, do you have a question or a statement for us on the line here?
Yeah, I definitely have one. And I guess you guys have already addressed it throughout the chat, but may not have done a deep dive on it, or just like maybe either soothe the nerves of a lot of the bottom Victorian teams and interstate teams, is that with the academies and the northern states kind of, ability to draw talent now, like with Gold Coast and Brisbane, are you worried that even though they have restricted the academy bids and all that kind of stuff, the damage has already been done, and we're probably going to end up with a Penrith Melbourne Storm type situation where they play in the next 8 grand finals, they're thereabouts, and there's not much you can do about it until those players phase out or zones come back in? Like, is there, like, it seems like a massive mess, and the AFL's kind of created their own, like, a rod for their back with these academies and have not well thought out the grassroots systems, not just in Victoria, but in, Western Australia, South Australia, all that kind of stuff.
It feels like the AFL have done this deliberately to get Gold Coast really up and running because they were struggling for such a long time. They have created a scary beast.
The Brisbane Lions were also similarly struggling like 10 years ago, prior to Lachie Neale and Charlie Cameron going up. But as much as that's true, and I do think the AFL are very happy about having these dominant Queensland sides, or at least really strong, I do think this was somewhat unintended how it's progressed in such a nature. Like the Brisbane Lions becoming on the verge of, well, very close to a three-peat, flag favourite again for number 4, fourth grand final rather. I actually think this is probably a little bit more supercharged than they'd hoped.
I completely agree. I think it's just a symptom of wanting to grow the game and expand it up to those northern states aggressively. If we see the AFL's behaviour over a long period of time, this keeps repeating itself. It just repeats itself on a smaller scale, and this one feels very, very supercharged. So you go back to the 90s where the father-son rule was really, really favourable, and then the Cats sort of exploited that with, Scarlett and Hawkins and the Ablets and these sorts of players. They got on their little, dynasty over that 5-6 period.
Can't forget Nathan.
No, and then they changed the rule, right? And they did that with priority picks and different things. Even the academies, when they first came in, it was players like Heaney and the clubs didn't have to give up as much capital, and they just sort of tweak things over time. I don't think they ever have this big plan in place for these things. It's a little bit ad hoc, and then it gets away from them. I think Jesse's right in this one. The circumstances for them is kind of advantageous for them, given it's the Queensland clubs, but it's like a mistake. They will fix it, but I do agree with you, Jacob. I think it's problematic, and it could result in a lot of premierships for these two clubs.
What I will say just quickly as well, to be fair, I suppose we really need to isolate this to the Northern Academy churning out talent, or the Gold Coast Academy specifically, because the AFL's had nothing to do with Will and Levi Ashcroft, right?
No.
Like that is just the luck of the system. So that's me amending what I said personally. It's like I don't know how much they've really had to do with the Brisbane Lions.
Well, yeah, it's what Gallup, Harris Andrews is the big one, right?
Yeah, a long time ago, late in the draft.
Yeah.
I suppose there still is some sort of degree of advantage there, but Harris Andrews was matched in like the 40s or 50s, I think.
Any academy or father-son that you get is somewhat of an advantage at any pick.
Sure. Yeah. Agreed.
But it does show that he was rated lower, given it was a late pick. But
also, Gold Coast best players. Sorry, I'm amending my own opinion here. Gold Coast best players, how many of those were academy players?
Well, the problem is with the Gold Coast, most of them, they've only got that right now. And I think this goes to Jacob's point. This is coming. It's
Sure.
not even upon us yet.
True.
And those teams, and Brisbane are still dominant. They've done it in a different way. That's more out of luck of the father-sons. But they've also just recruited well.
I've got an alternate opinion. Thinking off the noggin. This is what I do best. is this the worst possible time for Gold Coast to be churning out these Northern Academy talents? What if they go through a drought for the next 10 years and Ezekiel and Dylan Patterson and Jed Walter all playing at different clubs because they can't crack this juggernaut Gold Coast side?
What, they've got like an overflow of talent?
Yeah, well, a lot of the best talents that they've recruited are not massive pillars of their current team, right? Like we're talking Rowland Anderson drafted out of Victoria, for instance.
But I think that just shows the scariness of the sustainability of it, because they're just going to be able to keep going and keep going. Like they're not going to.
You're right.
They're not going to drop off.
Yes, I just meant
should AFL clubs be given proper B teams? So, for example, if Richmond or West Coast they had a proper, best 22, but a B side where they could develop players and then elevate them, kind of like the G League in the NBA, whereas that would grow grassroots, develop players, give more people a chance to play AFL footy, and it kind of, allows teams with, bigger, resources and that to kind of combat against these, Northern academies as well.
So you're essentially saying that the Victorian clubs would also have basically the same ability within a zone, Jacob?
Yeah, no, to a degree, it's more of like open up the VFL to basically, so for example, Richmond have had a bunch of really good VFL players just leave to other clubs. Like imagine if they had a B team that then they could elevate them like the NBA does in the G League. Then I feel like a club like Richmond, West Coast, any other club that's out there that has a good culture and that would incentivize other clubs to build a great resource facility, great culture, then they can develop these players that may not have gotten there in the draft, but can then slowly work their way up into an AFL team in their early to mid-20s.
I think that the idea is great. It's essentially the issue that's going to come back is around finances, right? Because that greatly expands the list sizes of clubs because they're paying, as it stands in the VFL, what you probably pay like 10 guys that are running through your VFL, maybe probably 20 actually.
Make an AFL 9s team, B team, 9v9.
Well, we do have reserves sides exist, right? So
none that you can sort of just elevate into your... Do you mean like during the season, Jacob? Like,
well, you're saying Jacob's saying like a
so if a player gets injured, they can elevate someone up, or if it's like someone's not performing well, they can demote them.
I gotcha.
I think you would find inequalities, if I'm understanding the question right. Forgive me if I'm not, but we'd find inequalities in terms of even just like within Victoria, the catchments of those sides, and then it's certainly I know it exists in the waffle, right, where the bad teams stay bad forever just because their zone is a little bit larger, right? So I think you're sort of trending into that kind of territory. Are you laughing at the comment?
Yeah, Mal Tompkins, who just said the show would be better without me, has donated $5. It says, I think we are just stressing a bit too much. Clubs will challenge them hard. I was just thinking Freo are probably entering the window at the same time as Gold Coast, both outside of the top four but inside finals. And I am scared, but we will challenge them. P.S. Just kidding, Druzy. Love ya. What a full circle moment. I want to ask you, Jacob, you've got picks 3 and 4 in the draft. Who do you like? Who do you want Richmond to take with those picks as a Tigers fan?
Well, following a similar trend, I had no idea who Roby was, a month ago. And then now I think he's the best thing since sliced bread. But I would love for Roby to be picked up. To be honest, I am a CDT fan. Like I honestly think because of the combine stats that he's dropped, you just play him on the wing. And yeah, sure, he may not be able to jump. Like his jumping isn't that great. But in terms of like his size and his like athleticism, he could be a scary prospect on that wing and then drifts forward or drifts back to kind of take on a Darcy type in a defensive role and or just go forward to kind of be that ultimate swingman. But I'd be happy. I'd be excited for Richmond to take CDT. I think we have the ability to develop him, considering that we're going to be, down the ladder a bit for the next maybe 2 years. And then when we start to come good, he will become our premier ruckman with Nank also getting older. I do see the similarities between Sims, but you do need 2 ruckmans anyway. So I'd rather them to have healthy competition. And then I would probably, if Roby's not there and West Coast do take him, then I would probably take, it's a tough one between Grill and Taylor. Taylor is the much, leadership but he's very similar to a bunch of other players we have. Grill would just be that. I can just imagine him just being fed handballs from Layla and Smiley in the midfield and just busting open games through the midfield. I think his speed and attack on the ball will be something that Richmond has not had in the last couple of years since people have left, that desperately need. But it's that, time old question: do you take needs over, best available, or best available over needs?
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there, particularly the Cooper Duff Tytler one. I think if you look at his numbers and the type of footballer that he is at the moment, he probably isn't really a ruckman. He's more his numbers look like a midfielder, and he sort of plays like that. He has even, while he's been playing for the Cannons, he sometimes actually just lines up on ball, which is pretty crazy for a 200 centimeter guy. That is the specimen that is Cooper Duff Tytler. So
just draft a midfielder then.
Yeah, well, you could just draft a midfielder, I suppose. But yeah, you do get, obviously you get the aerial game that he gives you. I think the jumping thing, people have looked at the combine numbers and gone, he wasn't top 10 in any of those and they expected him to be. But Jackson wasn't top 10 in any jumping. It's like relative to your size as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's like how far you get off the ground. So if he can jump, if he was the 11th best jumper in the crop, right, it's still better than anyone.
He's going to be head and shoulders above everyone anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not absolutely everything. Sometimes it is with the way, like an Alex Tyrou, for example, that really helps him because he's a little bit smaller and not a genuine key position player, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I think you're right. He's obviously going to be a project and that's what scares people off, but he's a serious talent and could be anything really. I think athletically he's probably as strong, if not stronger than someone like a TDK. I forgot Jacob's second point there. What was the next bit? Oh, Grill or Xavier Taylor was the other part. Yeah.
And Roby as well.
Yeah.
If available.
Yeah. And then there's the option of trading down as well. So I think with as far as the needs versus talent aspect of it, I think Richmond have probably shown over these two drafts, they're almost looking at it as a full window and they are trying to put all the pieces together. They're not as much looking at talent that's falling through. If you watch what they did last year, it was pretty aggressive. They went after players that they specifically wanted. Jonty Fall, maybe Taj Holton was one that fell through a little bit, but they kind of got everyone that they wanted and that they specifically needed. So I think they will do that again, be quite aggressive. My early shout is that they go for Sam Grill and Xavier Taylor.
Over Roby?
Wow.
If Roby's there, they'll get Roby.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be assuming West Coast took Roby.
Yeah, which we have no idea of, but it's possible.
Then I would expect Roby and Grill.
A final question for you, Jacob. Thank you for being the first ever person to call into the Footy from the Flat hotline.
Love you, Jacob.
What are your thoughts on Richmond delisting both Jacobs? That's from Lewis.
Wait, who?
Jacob Blight. Would be
right. Jacob Blight and Jacob Blight. My thoughts on it would be, I think a lot of Richmond fans are disappointed that Blight got delisted. Rumor amongst fans and big footy speculists that he was bad for the culture. Apparently his attitude and training and all that kind of stuff was pretty poor. Even though he was like a bit of an athletic beast in the VFL, and he's definitely a very capable player. But in terms of delisting, I'm like, it's a pretty poor Richmond team, and if you're getting delisted from this team, then I'm pretty sure it'd be different if we were like we were when we were successful and we were just delisting players like D'Ambrosio and Durham and all those guys. So, or not Durham. We didn't delist him, but what was his name? Stengel. We just let those players drop out. But I don't think that the players that we've delisted this year are anything like that.
And Jacob Kazitsky points out my mate Mao Tompkins. Jacob's all over the place. You still got Jacob Hopper.
They just hate the name.
It's
too many Jacobs. Jacob. We just need
It's a great name.
Yeah, Kaczynski was disappointing. I think he definitely started showing some stuff towards the end of the year, but we've got so much depth in the talls at the moment, both down back and up forward now with Armstrong and Jonty and Sims. So I just don't see how he fits in the list in the future. But yeah, I think as a Richmond fan going forward, I think that we are in a really good spot. And I think if you know anything about Blair Hartley being a list manager, I know Gold Coast tried to poach him when Dimmer went over there, is that he's really good at list building, and he is well known for keeping his cards close to his chest. And he doesn't apparently, and this is just a rumor, he doesn't take phone calls like 3 or 4 weeks out to the draft, and then that's why clubs panic, and then that's another reason why North panicked when they traded for pick their future first to the their future first for the Matt Whitlock pick. So I trust in anything. I trust Blair Hartley to get it done right. I can't think of any misses in the most recent couple of years with his list management skills.
Jacob, you've just outed him now.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows that.
Huh?
Now everybody knows that, and the plan won't work.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's on Big Footy, then I don't think it's that much of a secret, to be honest.
Jacob Bauer, Jake Arts, another couple of Jakes that have played.
I was so surprised that they delisted Jacob Bauer. I really liked him.
All right, I reckon we wrap it.
We better wrap it. Drewsy's got to go, Jacob, so we will...
You're a good man, Jacob. Join in another time.
Thanks so much,
Absolutely
mate.
killed it.
Good to have you.
Love it. And
Cheers.
we will...
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, mate. We will wrap up the stream as well. Footy from the flat is done for the trade period. We'll kick back into some draft stuff. Jesse, we're doing a mock next week.
Yeah, we will.
Is that correct?
And if you like this format, we can call in and we'll obviously continue to do that. It was cool that Dylan and Vicar, the producer, organised this today. And if you like it, let us know.
Bit of a trial today, and Jacob did a great job. Good questions there, and we can kind of open the floor and get something a little bit different. Guys, thanks for listening in, and we'll see you in the next one.
Go Freo.
Go Eagles.
Go Footy.
Dun, dun, dun.